Chapter 274. You really do deserve to die. Seeing such a kind old man being bullied like this, and then seeing little Ting covered in patches crying so sadly, Chu Bei's face completely darkened. It was not difficult to see the thick, killing intent hidden in his cold gaze as he looked at Li Hai and the others. Patriarch, they're here for this old bastard. Behind Li Hai stood a few men. From the way they addressed him, it was obvious that they were from the Li family. May I know your relationship with them? Li Hai pointed at the old man and the girl, looking at Chu Bei warily. Chu Bei glanced at Li Hai indifferently. He didn't say anything and just slapped down with his right hand. In an instant, amidst the crackling of electricity, a gigantic lightning palm that was hundreds of meters long appeared in the distant sky. Looking at the giant lightning palm that appeared out of nowhere above his head, fear suddenly surged in Li Hai's eyes. However, before he could react, the giant palm had already slammed down. Chila, Li Hai, and the Li family members behind him didn't even have time to scream before they were drowned by the lightning. Not even their bones remained. Rumble. After killing Li Hai and the others, the lightning palm continued to descend and slammed down on the mountain peak below. Accompanied by an earth-shattering boom, the mountain that was originally standing on the ground suddenly disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a huge palm pit that was tens of meters deep. Inside it, one could faintly see the charred trees that were squeezed together. From the appearance of the gigantic lightning palm to the death of Li Hai and the others, to the disappearance of the mountain peak and its transformation into a crater, all of this happened in a split second. The old man looked down in horror. He was stunned for a long time before he gulped and asked, Ting, who are these immortals? Big brother is here to eat. Little Ting bit her lips lightly. Her eyes were a little flustered as she muttered in a low voice, I didn't know he could fly. Boss, well done. You even hurt an old woman. Serves you right. Yifan and Ji Ziyue both gave Chu Bei a thumbs up. Whoosh, whoosh. Amidst an earth-shattering boom, several streaks of light flew out from the other mountains in the continuous mountain range. Soon, dozens of figures, led by a man in a white robe, appeared in front of Chu Bei. Boss Chu. Seeing Chu Bei's appearance clearly, the white-clothed man's pupils suddenly shrank. Hearing the way the white-clothed man addressed him, the group of elders behind him suddenly trembled. Although they had only known this name for a few hours, it had already been deeply imprinted in their minds. Misty Grotto Sect Master, I didn't expect to see you again so soon. Chu Bei greeted him indifferently with his hands behind his back. Old ancestor, may I know what grudge you have with elderly High of my paradise? When he thought of the fact that the person in front of him had strength above the dragon realm, there was no anger on the face of the Haze Cave leader. Instead, there was more respect on his face. He was also very nervous when he spoke. It was as if he was afraid that he would say something wrong. He didn't even let go of an ordinary old man in his 70s. Do you think he deserves to die? This time, it's only a mountain. If you don't manage your subordinates well, I'm afraid the entire Haze Cave will disappear from the Yin country next time. A voice filled with supreme authority floated in the air. The Haze Cave leader's body trembled slightly. Just as he was about to say something, a flash of lightning flashed in his line of sight. Chu Bei, Yifan, and the others were nowhere to be seen. Sect Master, he passed down my order. No one in the paradise is allowed to bully ordinary people again. Otherwise, kill without mercy. On a mountain below, two figures stared blankly in the direction of the flash of lightning. They were Li Xiaoman and Zhou Yi. Thank you, Immortal. Thank you, Immortal. As soon as they returned to the shabby restaurant, the old man carried little Ting and bowed to Chu Bei to express his gratitude. There's no need to be so polite. You're the descendants of my old friend. I didn't expect you and your granddaughter to be reduced to such a state. Chu Bei pretended to sigh. Immortal, you know my ancestor? The old man's voice was filled with surprise. Chu Bei nodded and did not say much. Night gradually fell. After dinner, Yifan used the source energy that Chu Bei gave him to enter a state of cultivation. Boom. As the black source energy was absorbed one by one, a powerful aura finally erupted from Yifan's body. The void where he was located trembled. Looking over, Yifan's body was full of spiritual qi, and the golden divine fire burned fiercely outside his body. Is this the life spring stage? Yifan stood up. His eyes were shining as if two bolts of lightning were shooting out. It was exceptionally bright. Compared to before the breakthrough, Yifan now had a majestic aura. The aura he released shook the ground violently. At that moment, a spring appeared in the center of Yifan's misery sea. It was connected to the wheel of life. The holy spring was gurgling, surrounded by a misty, colorful mist. What a monster! Jizue looked at Yifan and mumbled. This guy in front of her used 100 times more source energy to go from the misery sea to the life spring stage than ordinary people. What was more terrifying was that his body constitution was the sacred body of the ancients, which could turn into thunder and lightning. He used thunder and lightning to temper his body and then absorbed the source energy crazily. The speed of his cultivation could only be described as terrifying. Boss, what kind of weapons do you think I should blood bond with? Yifan asked Chu Bei. The Misery Sea, Life Spring, Divine Bridge, and Nirvana Realm were the 4 stages. Each stage could blood bond with one type of weapon. This weapon was similar to a magic treasure that could be used for defense or attack. Now that he had reached the Life Spring stage, theoretically, he could blood bond with 2 types of weapons. Do you know the saying, one weapon can break 10,000 spells, and 100 flowers will die after I bloom? Chu Bei asked Yifan. Boss, what do you mean? Blood bond with only one type of weapon. The most powerful weapon is made by combining the 4 stages. To put it simply, if you want to get the most powerful weapon, the Misery Sea, Life Spring, Divine Bridge, and Nirvana Realm only need one type of weapon, not 4. Boss, what kind of weapon do you think I should blood bond with? The more complicated the weapon is, the harder it is to take shape. It contains the Tao and logic of heaven and earth. However, once it takes shape, it can break 10,000 spells with one weapon. It can be said that a great weapon is a late bloomer. I recommend you to blood bond with the cauldron. As for the cauldron, you can decide for yourself. Thank you for your advice. Yifan bowed to Chu Bei as he had an answer in his heart. A great weapon is a late bloomer, breaking 10,000 spells with one weapon? Jizue, who was listening attentively, nodded. At the same time, have you guys heard? Boss Chu destroyed one of the 6 grotto heavens, the Haze Grotto's mountain. It's impossible not to know about such a big thing. As far as I know, it's because Boss Chu couldn't stand the 3rd elder of the Haze Grotto bullying an ordinary old man with the surname Jiang. If that's the case, this Boss Chu has a sense of justice. I admire him even more now. The discussion about Chu Bei in the entire Yin country was getting more and more intense. Even Boss Chu's deeds were spreading in every corner. It was the topic of conversation before and after meals. The next day, at dawn, more than a dozen people on horses came to the Windy City. All of them were extremely mystical savage beasts. Each of them was covered in dense scales and had towering horns. The mount in the middle was the most extraordinary. It was covered in golden scales and was surrounded by a dazzling divine light. It looked like a golden flame was burning. There was a young man about 24 or 25 years old sitting on this mount. He was dressed in white and looked very refined. He had a gentle smile on his face and was very handsome. His eyes were like water, and there was a faint divine light flowing in them. He could be said to be as handsome as jade. On his left was a green beast that looked like a lion and a tiger. It had a jade horn on its head that was emitting a 5-colored divine light. A 16 or 17-year-old young man was sitting on it. He wore a green robe and looked very handsome. However, there was a faint arrogance in him as he looked at everything in the town with disdain. On the right of the young man was a strange beast that was shining with silver light. It looked like a divine deer and was covered in silver scales. A 16 or 17-year-old girl was sitting on it. Her skin was smooth and her eyes were misty like autumn water. Her lips were red and she was very beautiful. However, she gave people a feeling that she was unattainable and had a trace of arrogance. The dozens of strange beasts behind the 3 people were also extraordinary. They were all very rare species. Some were covered in dense scales, and some were like jade. All of them were shining brightly. The people on the mounts were from 20 to 40 years old. Regardless of whether they were men or women, they all had a murderous aura. A strong battle intent gathered around them. Where did these people come from? They are definitely not ordinary people. I don't know. Anyway, they are not from here. Look at those powerful mounts. I'm afraid they are from the big forces outside the Yin country. Why would such people come to a remote place like ours? Why can't they come? Boss Chu is here too. On the streets, the residents gasped when they saw the majestic procession. I heard that there is someone with the surname Jiang here. He was bullied yesterday. Do any of you know where this person with the surname Jiang lives? The group stopped, and a knight was ordered to ask the people on the street. Don't be afraid. We don't mean any harm. We just want to confirm if there is someone with the surname Jiang here. Seeing the residents' frightened faces, the middle-aged knight tried to show a kind expression. Even so, as a knight who had experienced hundreds of battles, he naturally emitted a murderous aura. When ordinary people felt it, they still trembled in fear. Are you looking for Uncle Jiang? In these few streets, only his grandfather and grandson have the surname Jiang, a resident said. Where do they live? Hearing this, the young man who was leading the group was delighted and immediately asked, Turn left on the street in front. The 7th restaurant is called Jiang's Restaurant, the resident continued. Thank you. The young man immediately rode his beast and moved forward in the direction pointed by the resident. Not far away, a middle-aged woman heard this and immediately took a shortcut to Jiang's restaurant. Xiao Hong, why are you in such a hurry so early in the morning? The old woman walked out of the kitchen. Aunt Lu, what's wrong? Little Ting had just finished washing a plate of bright red wild fruits. She obediently brought it over, and her big black eyes blinked, flashing with a curious light. Lu Hong glanced at Chu Bei, who was sitting at the side. She first greeted him respectfully, then told Uncle Jiang about what she had seen and heard. After that, she asked curiously, Uncle Jiang, have you met these outsiders before? Uncle Jiang shook his head and said, I've lived for more than 70 years, and I've never left the town. It's impossible for me to know such people. The Jiang family? Huh? They're quite fast. After listening to Lu Hong's description, Chu Bei had a guess in his mind. He took a few wild fruits that Xiao Dingting had washed and threw them into his mouth. Forces that can raise exotic beasts are not simple, Ji Ziyue murmured. Her beautiful eyes were filled with curiosity. I'll go and see what they look like. Stars appeared in Xiao Dingting's big watery eyes. She ran out of the restaurant and curiously looked toward the end of the street. Her childish nature was undoubtedly revealed. Lu Hong seemed to have thought of something. Could it be related to Tingting's parents? No. A trace of sadness flashed in the old woman's eyes. He said, They've been cultivating in the mist cave and have never traveled far. Their friends are also from the same sect. Grandpa, they're here. They're here. Come and see the exotic beasts. Xiao Dingting stood at the entrance of the restaurant. Her rosy little face was filled with excitement and surprise. The old woman hurried out and saw a dozen riders rushing over quickly. There was no dust in the air. All the exotic beasts were 3 inches above the ground and were walking in the air. They're so fierce. When the exotic beasts came closer, Xiao Dingting hid behind the old woman in fear. On the exotic beasts, all the riders naturally released a strong, murderous aura. An innate fighting spirit filled the air. May I ask which one of you is surnamed Jiang? The dozen savage beasts stopped in front of the restaurant. They shook their heads and wagged their tails. Their scales flickered and emitted all kinds of light. The leading young man, who looked very elegant and handsome, asked. He was dressed in snow-white clothes. His eyes were like water, occasionally flowing with a bit of divine light. He had a unique temperament. Uncle Jiang's wrinkled face was filled with confusion. He said, I am. May I know why you immortals are looking for me? Seeing the old woman's face engraved with years of hardships and wrinkles, the 16 or 17-year-old boy sitting on the 5-colored exotic beast immediately frowned. He said, Brother Ifei, this is just an ordinary old woman who's about to die. He can't be the person we're looking for. Hearing this, the young man in white glanced at the boy. The boy seemed to have some misgivings. He stopped talking and didn't say anything else. Uncle, have you been living here all this time? Yes, I've almost never traveled far. Did your ancestors live here or move to this town later? My father's generation moved here. I was born here. What do you want? Uncle, where's your father? He passed away more than 50 years ago. What? At this point, the man in white was stunned. A trace of surprise appeared on his jade-like face. Brother Ife, I told you. He's just an ordinary old man. The boy on the five-colored exotic beast showed an impatient look. It seemed that he wanted to leave as soon as possible. Shut up. The man in white turned around and glared at him. Then he turned back and continued to ask, Uncle, is your father called Jiangxia? Chapter 275. How? How did you know? The old man was shocked when he heard the man's words. It's him. It seems that we really found it. Hearing this, the young girl sitting on the silver divine deer revealed a surprised expression. How could such an ordinary old man have the blood of the Jiang family? If he's really the descendant of Jiangxia, how could he not know how to cultivate? He must have the same name. The young man frowned. The young man in white ignored the young man and went forward to help the old man. He said gently, Uncle, can we go in and talk? As soon as he finished speaking, the group of knights stood guard outside. The man in white helped the old man back to the small restaurant. The arrogant young man and the young girl followed behind him. After entering the restaurant, the man in white first looked at Chu Bei and frowned. When his eyes fell on Ji Ziyue, surprise flashed in his eyes. You're from the Jiang family. Ji Ziyue exclaimed when she recognized the man in white. Ji Ziyue, why are you here? The man in white frowned. Not only him, but the young man and the young girl beside him were also puzzled. I'll be wherever I want to be. It's none of your business. Ji Ziyue shrugged and pulled Xiao Tingting into her arms. Why are you here? Are you and Tingting from the Jiang family? If I'm not mistaken, we should be. Then, the man in white looked back at the old man. Uncle, are there a few red moles on Jiangxia's left arm? There are 5 in total. How do you know that? Uncle Jiang was surprised. The man in white sighed. I didn't expect Jiangxi to live in seclusion in the Yin country. It's sad that he passed away 50 years ago. Old man, I'm Jiang Yifei. Maybe I should call you granduncle. You're too kind. Uncle Jiang hurriedly pulled the man in white up when he saw the man bowing to him. You two, come over and greet me. Jiang Yifei turned around and said to the two behind him, Greetings, granduncle. The beautiful young girl around 16 or 17 years old bowed and glanced at Yifan and shouting, Greetings, granduncle. The young man was somewhat reluctant and perfunctory. You guys are. The old man looked at Chu Bei with fear in his eyes. Big brother, big sister, do you know Grandpa? Little Tingting stayed in Ji Ziyue's arms, her long eyelashes fluttering. Zhang Yifei looked at Xiaotingting. We're from the same family. What family? Little Tingting blinked her big eyes curiously. An ancient aristocratic family that has existed since the primordial age, the Jiang family. As you grow older, you will slowly understand how extraordinary our family is in the eastern wilderness. Jiang Yifei's words carried a sense of pride. Old Master Jiangxia was an outstanding talent back then, and his name shook the entire region when he was just 20 years old. Later on, he even shocked the eastern wilderness. With a stomp of his feet, the clouds in the 8 directions would move, and he would command the wind and clouds. At this point, Jiang Yifei glanced at the old man in Little Tingting's patched clothes and lamented. Who would have thought that his descendants would fall to such a state? Granduncle, didn't old Master Jiangxia teach you any cultivation methods back then? The young girl beside Jiang Yifei asked. Cultivation? I don't even know what you're talking about. The old man seemed to be confused by their questions. Our family owes old Master Jiangxia too much, but it's hard to explain what happened in the past. Anyway, we're here to bring you back to the family. Jiang Yifei seemed to have thought of something, and his expression became serious. Granduncle, is it because of the Haze Grotto that you've fallen to such a state? If that's the case, then there's no need for the Haze Grotto to exist. The bad guys who bullied Grandpa and me have been sent to another world by Big Brother. They won't bully us anymore, Little Tingting said weakly. Looking in the direction that Little Tingting was pointing at, Jiang Yifei's eyes fell on Chu Bei again. You are? Since you want to bring them back to the Jiang family, how can you ensure that they won't be bullied in the Jiang family? Chu Bei didn't answer Jiang Yifei's question. Instead, he asked a question with a smile. Who do you think you are? The young man next to Jiang Yifei took a step forward and looked at Chu Bei with disdain. Then, before he could finish his question, he was sent flying with a bang, and blood spurted from his mouth. In an instant, his face turned pale, and his aura became extremely weak. You, what did you do? The young girl immediately distanced herself from Chu Bei with a vigilant look on her face. From the beginning to the end, she didn't see how Chu Bei attacked, but her brother was severely injured by an invisible force. Jiang Yifei glanced at the dying young man outside the door and then looked at Chu Bei warily. I have a certain amount of authority in the Jiang family. I'm the one who brought them back. Naturally, I won't allow anyone to hurt them. Remember what you're saying now. If they're bullied in the Jiang family, Chu Bei's expression gradually turned cold. He glanced at Jiang Yifei indifferently and snorted. I'll remove the Jiang family from the list of remote antiquity aristocratic families. Aren't you a little too arrogant? Jiang Yifei's face turned ugly when he heard Chu Bei's words. You don't believe me? As soon as this calm voice fell, the air in the shabby restaurant suddenly became stagnant, and the atmosphere dropped to zero. At this moment, Jiang Yifei and the young girl suddenly trembled, and then an unknown chill surged in their hearts. Almost in an instant, all their bodily functions were taken away, and for the first time, they felt that death was so close. Inexplicably, when they met the mysterious man's eyes again, a wave of fear surged in their hearts, and there was a faint impulse to worship him. Remember what I'm saying. As for who I am, you can call me Boss Chu. I think it won't be long before the master of the Jiang family knows this name. A voice full of majesty echoed in the room. Jiang Yifei and the young girl felt that the terrifying pressure that shrouded them suddenly disappeared, and sweat oozed from their foreheads in an instant. After regaining control of his body, Jiang Yifei immediately took a step back and looked at Chu Bei in horror, not daring to say a word. Ting Ting, come here. I have something to tell you. Chu Bei waved to little Ting Ting. Jiang Tingting responded obediently and followed Chu Bei into the inner room. 5 minutes later, when Jiang Tingting walked out of the inner room, there was a purple ring on the middle finger of her right hand. Little Tingting, you and Grandpa go back to the family with them. You don't have to wear patched clothes there, and you can eat and drink to your heart's content every day. I'll go and play with you when I'm free. Chu Bei lovingly patted little Tingting's head and said, If you get bullied, remember how I call you. Ting Ting will listen to Grandpa. If Grandpa goes with them, Ting Ting will go. If Grandpa doesn't go, Ting Ting won't go either. Little Ting Ting ran to the old man's side. I want to give Ting Ting a good environment. After a long while, the old man reluctantly looked at the shabby restaurant, but in the end, he got on the mount that Jiang Yifei prepared. Brother Yifei, how strong is this Boss Chu? You are one of the strongest people of the younger generation in the eastern wilderness, but even you can't fight back. After leaving the restaurant, the young girl asked. She still felt a lingering fear when she thought of the pressure that shrouded her body. I don't know. Jiang Yifei shook his head and said, maybe his strength is on par with the master, or even above him. Anyway, when we go back, we have to find out more about this guy. What? Even above the master? Hearing Jiang Yifei's words, the young girl gasped. It was as if she had been struck by lightning. In the restaurant, Ji Ziyue rested her chin on her hands and looked at Chu Bei with admiration. Boss, you were so cool and domineering just now. Even when you said that you would destroy the Jiang family, Jiang Yifei didn't even dare to fart. Chu Bei glanced at Ji Ziyue and ignored her. Then, he looked at Yifan and said, the Jiang family's father and son have left. Let's go too. Boss, where are we going next? Yifan looked around the restaurant and stared at Chu Bei with confusion in his eyes. A place you've been to before. Chu Bei's lips curled up. As soon as he finished speaking, a rainbow light flashed and the three of them disappeared. Big Dipper Starfield. Eastern Wilderness, Southern Region. The Alcade mountain range was originally an ordinary nameless mountain range in the southern region. However, after the Alcade Holy Land settled there, it was named Alcade and became a place that all the major forces paid attention to. In the mountain range, peaks rose from the ground. On these peaks, there were many towering pavilions. In the center of these peaks, there was an extraordinarily majestic hall. It was surrounded by clouds and mist, which made it look majestic. If one looked closely, they would notice that there was a layer of purple mist on the surface of the hall. As the mist surged, the majestic spiritual energy made one feel refreshed. In the depths of the mountain range, in the territory of the Alcade Holy Land, teams of young disciples were sweeping back and forth in every corner. It was like an inescapable net. With this level of defense, even if a wild beast barged in, it would be immediately detected. Crack! Suddenly, the space in the main hall shook violently. With a loud bang, the void was torn apart. A huge crack spread out, and a figure descended like a deity. That person was wrapped in a hazy brilliance, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. He was like a deity descending to the earth, striking fear in people's hearts and making them have the urge to kneel down. "Greetings, Saint Lord." There were nearly 30 figures in the main hall. Every one of them had a valiant aura, and they all knelt down in unison toward the figure in the sky. "Is there any news about Bostchu?" The Central Region's treasure, the heart of the great emperor, the Tao Scripture Sea of Reincarnation Scroll. These are all immortal treasures. The Alcade Saint Lord placed his hands behind his back, and a halo covered his body. He was like a deity, and no one could look at him directly. As his majestic voice fell, he sat down on the main seat. "Saint Lord, Bostchu not only appeared in Clear Wind City, but he also destroyed the Alcade Stone gambling house there." A middle-aged man stepped forward and explained in detail. "Damn it, does this guy look down on me, the Alcade Saint Lord?" The Alcade Saint Lord snorted coldly. 108 halos circled around his body, and each of them was crystal clear. They were like 108 great worlds that were faintly discernible. "Saint Lord, Bostchu's cultivation level is not low. Do you think we should send more experts to capture him?" Someone suggested. "The Bronze Immortal Palace has appeared. After finding this opportunity, I will go and meet this Bostchu personally." The Alcade Saint Lord clenched his fists, and his eyes were cold. Chapter 276. Eastern Wilderness, southwest of the North Region. It was a dreamlike fairyland. The place was filled with divine chi. The mountains were green, the valleys were green, the waterfalls were flowing, the cranes were flying, and the longevity apes were jumping happily. On every mountain peak, there were jade palaces connected. It was like a poem or a painting, intoxicating. Hundreds of white figures were dancing in the huge square. If one looked closely, they were all women. The Jade Lake Sacred Ground was a sacred ground where 90% of the disciples were female. "Sacred Leader, you are out." As a beautiful heavenly music sounded above the square, the noisy square suddenly quieted down. The group of female disciples looked up at the jade palaces in the sky and saw a woman in white flying over. She had a peerlessly beautiful appearance, limpid eyes, snow-white skin, long black hair that was like a waterfall, and a slender and delicate body. This was a dreamlike woman. Her entire body emitted a spiritual energy, and it could be said that she possessed the wisdom of heaven and earth. "When I was in seclusion, did anything big happen in the outside world?" The woman in white asked calmly. "Sacred Leader, there were two important things." The person who replied was a beautiful woman in green. She was Bai Lian, who fought for the ancient ruins palace. After organizing her thoughts, Bai Lian looked at the woman in white respectfully and said slowly, "The Shifter Emperor's tomb has appeared. This Bostchu is the biggest winner. The Bronze Immortal Palace has appeared again." After hearing Bai Lian's words, the woman in white looked into the distance and muttered, "Sacred Leader, I think the Wavering Light Sacred Ground, the Clan of the Ancients, and other top forces are looking for Bostchu. Moreover, since the Bronze Immortal Palace has appeared, these forces will most likely be there." Bai Lian bowed to the woman in white. "Sacred Leader, what do you mean? We don't know Bostchu's background. Let's put him aside for now, and let the other forces find out. As for the Bronze Immortal Palace, I have been in seclusion for too long. It is time for me to go out. Maybe I can really find the opportunity to become an immortal." The woman in white's clothes fluttered. Eastern Wilderness, northwest of the North region. In the sky above the netherworld forest, dozens of extremely mystical savage beasts flew across the void. They were all covered in scales and had horns on their heads. On the back of each of these beasts was a knight who had killed Ling Ran. Of course, there were two figures that seemed to be out of place amongst these knights. They were respectively an old man that was over 70 years old and a little girl that was only 5 or 6 years old. "I'm back." Suddenly, a voice filled with majesty rang out. A tall figure appeared from the crack in the void. Every time he took a step forward, a large part of space would collapse. It was as if a god was patrolling the heavens. "Greetings, Patriarch." Everyone, including the white-robed man, bowed to the tall figure in unison. "Why is little Ming injured?" The tall figure glanced at the youth whose face was completely pale. "Holy Master, do you know a person called Boss Chu?" The young man in white immediately explained in detail. "I just found out about it not long ago. Now, the entire Eastern Wilderness is looking for him. Who would have thought that he would actually appear in the Clear Breeze City and even know our ancestor?" The tall figure said with narrowed eyes. "Are they Jiangzha's descendants? You don't have any cultivation at all." The tall figure glanced at Uncle Jiang and little Tingting, then looked back at Jiang Yifei. "Bring them back to the clan first. I'll make arrangements for them when I come back." "Patriarch, where are you going?" Jiang Yifei asked curiously. "Bronze Immortal Palace." The 4 words were spoken calmly. The tall figure took a step forward and disappeared. "Eastern Wilderness, Southern region." "What? That crazy girl is with Boss Chu." A shout came from the top of a towering mountain. The entire space shook, and a middle-aged man with an aura that could swallow mountains and rivers walked out of the crack in the void. The middle-aged man stood high in the sky as if he was in the 9th heaven, looking down at the world with awe. Looking at him, the tall figure seemed to be one with the great path of the void. It was like a lonely universe and a boundless starry sky. It was neither created nor destroyed, and it made people feel that it was eternal. "Sacred Master, I've dealt with Boss Chu before. Although his strength is unfathomable, he's not a bad person. He distinguishes between good and evil, and he only kills those who deserve to be killed. Although Miss is a little naughty and willful, she's not a bad person. Besides, since Miss took the initiative to follow him, it's obvious that Boss Chu doesn't mean any harm to her," Ji Feng said respectfully. "Ridiculous. Find that crazy girl immediately and bring her back to me. Lock her in the Cliff of Reflection. The Bronze Immortal Palace has appeared, and I don't have time to waste on that crazy girl." The middle-aged man waved his robe and shouted. On this day, all the top forces in the Eastern Wilderness rushed to the eastern region of the Forbidden Land of Remote Antiquity. The Forbidden Land of Remote Antiquity was one of the 9 towering mountains. The mountain was covered with lush vegetation and strange rocks. It was beautiful. However, Ji Ziyue was not in the mood to appreciate the beautiful scenery around her. Her slender arms were tightly wrapped around Chu Bei's arm like a clingy husky, sticking close to him. "Boss, why did you bring me here? This is one of the 7 famous forbidden areas. It's not an exaggeration to call it the number 1 forbidden area." Ji Ziyue looked like she was about to cry. "Ancestral Patriarch, let's get out of here as soon as possible. Those who enter the Forbidden Land of Remote Antiquity will most likely die, and those who survive will become old men and women. Thousands of years ago, there was a powerful force in Zhongzhou, and they were all annihilated here. What are you afraid of? I'm going to walk out of here. Besides, with the boss here, you'll be fine." Yifan looked at Ji Ziyue with a smile. Hearing Yifan's words, Ji Ziyue looked at the lightning shield around her body. Although her beautiful eyes were still filled with fear, her expression had softened. She could vaguely feel that there was a strange energy moving around outside the lightning shield, but it was being purified by the lightning. If she guessed correctly, the purified energy was the terrifying energy that could strip away time in the forbidden land of remote antiquity. "Ancestral Patriarch, tell me, why did you bring us here? Could it be that you have a lover here?" Ji Ziyue became more and more unscrupulous as she spent more time with Chu Bei, picking saint fruits. "If there are more, you can have some too." Chu Bei could only answer after being asked again and again. His purpose of coming here was to find some saint fruits to contribute to the system so that he could continue to speed up the conversion of his cultivation. Saint fruits. Is this an opportunity that you're giving us? Hearing Chu Bei's words, Ji Ziyue's eyes lit up. However, just as she was about to ask more questions, an extremely powerful and terrifying fluctuation suddenly came from the front. It was as vast and unpredictable as the ocean, rolling in all directions. Dead, dead. All of them are dead. Out of nowhere, a white-haired madman appeared in front of them. He was crying and laughing as he kept repeating the same words. How can there be anyone alive here? Seeing the madman who appeared out of nowhere, Ji Ziyue's mouth was wide open and she was stunned. Dead, dead. Everyone is dead. As long as you walk into the forbidden land, no one can survive. The madman in tattered clothes was crying and laughing at the same time. I can already see the scene of rivers of blood and mountains of corpses. Uncle, are you all right? Yifan took a step forward and asked in surprise. Turn back, or you'll all die. The madman glanced at Chu Bei, Yifan, and Ji Ziyue with empty eyes. He was crying and laughing. Endless bones, mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Is here again, Uncle. What on earth are you talking about? Yifan was confused when he heard that. He did not understand what was going on. Endless bones, mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Is here again. However, the white-haired madman did not pay attention to Yifan. He continued to cry and laugh. Hearing the madman's repeated words, Yifan felt a headache coming on. Ji Ziyue could not help but shudder. Both of them looked at Chu Bei at the same time. Don't you know that there's a powerful force in Zhongzhou that's exploring the ancient, desolate Forbidden Land? However, not all of them died. At the very least, he survived. Looking at the madman, Chu Bei shook his head and sighed. He's also a pitiful person. What? He's a survivor of that force? But according to the ancient records of my clan, that was 6,000 years ago. Could it be that this crazy old man, he's really from 6,000 years ago? Ji Ziyue stared at the crying madman in disbelief. An old man who had lived for more than 6,000 years was too shocking. Her heart was filled with shock. A figure from 6,000 years ago. Yifan swallowed and looked at the crazy old man in front of him again. This was simply too shocking. On Earth, with such a long history and so many eras, it was like a living history book. It was unimaginable. Dead. They're all dead. Crazy, Ol cried and screamed as he gradually disappeared into the distance. Just like that, he disappeared into thin air. This is indeed not a place for humans. I just came in and already met a crazy old man who has lived for at least 6,000 years. How terrifying. Looking at the direction where the crazy old man disappeared, Ji Ziyue was stunned for a while before she came back to her senses. Soon, you'll love it here. Chu Bei touched Ji Ziyue's little head and quickly found the target of this trip with his observation hockey. Ancestor, are those the holy fruits you mentioned? Ji Ziyue, who was following closely behind Chu Bei, soon smelled the refreshing fragrance. Not far from them, there were 3 strange trees, all more than half a meter high, shining with green light, as if carved out of jade. They were shaped like pine trees, with clusters of needle-like leaves, as if carved out of green jade, shining brilliantly. There are 9 holy mountains in the ancient, desolate, forbidden area, and there is a holy fruit at the top of each mountain. This is one of them, Chu Bei said lightly. Although the 3 trees were short, their branches were covered with old bark, strong and powerful, winding and stretching like dragons. They seemed to have grown for hundreds of thousands of years and had existed for countless years, giving off an extremely ancient and strange feeling. They were not like plants, but like living fossils. At the top of each tree, there was a shining golden fruit. Although it was only the size of a thumb, it was crystal clear as if cast in gold. It was not ordinary at first glance. Chapter 277. Boss, can I become an immortal after eating it? Ji Ziyue stared at the golden fruit with shining eyes and subconsciously licked her lips. The dazzling fruit's fragrance was intoxicating. Hee hee. Chu Bei rolled his eyes. Rumble. That's... But before Ji could run 2 steps away, she suddenly stopped and her expression stiffened. Unknowingly, a peerlessly beautiful woman appeared in front of the 3 small trees. This woman had bright eyes and white teeth. She was as beautiful as a lotus flower. She just stood there quietly, her white dress fluttering in the wind. She was like a fairy who was about to fly away with the wind. Looking at her, the woman gave off a dreamy feeling. She was like the spirit of heaven and earth. Ancestor, who is this peerlessly beautiful woman? Ji instinctively retreated to Chu Bei's side. From the moment the woman appeared, he could feel that the corrosive power of time outside his lightning barrier was fluctuating more and more. Why is she not affected by the forbidden area of the remote antiquity? Yifan looked at the woman and frowned. Right at this moment, the woman suddenly strode out gracefully towards Chu Bei's group of 3. With every step she took, the evil aura around her surged. The Bronze Immortal Palace is about to appear. The side quest is activated. The host needs to obtain enough creation chi for the system. During the process, the host can use the level 14 commodity once. Reward for completing the task. The host can obtain the right to use the level 15 commodity once. Old ancestor, that woman is coming. Ji slender finger pointed at the approaching woman with anxiety. Bronze Immortal Palace? The right to use the level 15 commodity. However, at this moment, Chu Bei's attention was completely focused on the system panel. A new side quest had been added to the quest bar. After recovering from the joy, Chu Bei immediately released his observation haki to the extreme, sweeping through every corner of the forbidden land of remote antiquity, and then spread out far away. Soon, Chu Bei found some clues. In the eastern region of the outer perimeter of the forbidden area of remote antiquity, there was a strange aura fluctuation in the void, as if an unimaginable existence was about to appear. Ancestor, she's already here. Ji shook Chu Bei's arm crazily. The mysterious woman was now less than half a meter away from her. Looking at the mysterious woman up close, Ji suddenly felt that she looked familiar. However, at this moment, she didn't have the time to think about this woman's identity. She only knew that this woman had the unique power of the forbidden land of ancient desolation. As the other party got closer, she could vaguely feel his power. If not for the lightning barrier around her body, she would have died of old age and turned into ashes. Chi. Just as her lightning shield was about to be eroded by the force, a loud clap of thunder was heard, and the lightning shield around Ji body became thicker. In an instant, the pressure on Ji disappeared. I didn't expect to see another pitiful person. Looking at the woman in front of him, Chu Bei couldn't help but shake his head. Compared to Crazy Ol, the pity in his eyes was more intense. Boss, could she be the legendary desolation? Yifan guessed. After landing in the Big Dipper and leaving the forbidden land of ancient desolation, he learned from Vivian that there was an unknown creature in the abyss of ancient desolation called Desolation. I remember now. I've seen her portrait. At this moment, Ji stared at the woman and exclaimed. Her voice was filled with fear. 6,000 years ago, she was known as the first saintess of Eastern Desolation. She was flawless. Including my ancestors, several famous big shots in Eastern Desolation used to follow her. She was from the most prosperous immortal sect, the saintess of the force that was destroyed in the forbidden land of ancient desolation. Ji was shocked. Could she be the same as that crazy old man? Is she also a survivor? Yifan guessed after hearing what Ji said. No, she's different from that Crazy Ol. Crazy Ol is alive, but she's dead. What is desolation? A powerful person who died was cursed and became a desolate slave. In that era, she was known as the Heavenly Jade Saintess, Chu Bei said as he glanced at the woman. What? She's dead. Yifan and Ji expressions changed. Die. Suddenly, an emotionless cold voice filled the air and rang clearly in the ears of Chu Bei. Ji and Ji. The woman moved, and her body glowed brightly. A purple bronze mirror rushed out of her body. On the back of the mirror, there was an 8 trigrams diagram. The front of the mirror was as bright as the full moon. shining with dazzling light. A huge beam of light shot into the sky. The entire peak of the holy mountain shook violently. The beam of light was like the Milky Way descending from the 9 heavens, making people feel an endless and terrifying pressure. Boss, Jizue was shocked when she felt the terrifying pressure from the woman. Although she had never seen a desolate slave before, she knew a lot about them. Only supreme experts with extraordinary strength were qualified to be chosen as desolate slaves by the forbidden land of the remote antiquity. Even the sacred masters of the sacred grounds would not have an easy time facing these desolate slaves. Jizue felt an inexplicable sense of fear when she recalled that the woman in front of her was the heavenly jade saintess from 6,000 years ago. She tightened her grip on Chu Bei's arm. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Under Jizue's horrified gaze, the purple bronze mirror in front of the heavenly jade saintess suddenly aimed at her. At the same time, an immeasurably terrifying beam of light was aimed at her. Boss, I don't want to die yet. Boo-hoo. I'm so beautiful, but I haven't become an immortal yet. Jizue wailed in the face of the beam of light that she could not deal with. However, before the tears could roll down his cheeks, an unbelievable scene occurred with a ripping sound. The beam of light that could make the sun, moon, and stars pale in comparison turned into a wisp of smoke and disappeared the moment it hit her. Then, with a crisp sound, the purple bronze mirror shattered. Huh! Seeing the mirror disappear, the heavenly jade saintess's eyes flashed with a trace of instinctive surprise. She glanced at Chu Bei and saw another heavenly luo umbrella rushing out of his body. It covered the sky and the sun as it surged forward, stirring up a violent wind. Chu Bei gently pointed his finger, and the huge umbrella that covered the sky was instantly pierced through. Its brilliance dimmed as it fell to the ground. Almost at the same time, the heavenly jade saintess's body suddenly trembled as her graceful figure staggered backward. No matter who you are, you must die. The heavenly jade saintess stabilized her body and spoke in a low, chilling voice again. However, this time, the voice did not seem to come from her mouth. It sounded more like it came from the depths of the remote antiquity abyss. The heavenly jade saintess's eyes suddenly turned white after hearing the cold, murderous words. At the same time, a palm-sized green leaf appeared in her hand. It was like a green jade, sparkling with a crystalline luster and densely covered with Tao patterns. She held it with both hands, and suddenly, endless divine light appeared. It turned into a sky full of green light and drowned the entire sacred mountain in an instant. Chu Bei, Yifan, and Jizue were all covered in it. The terrifying energy was incomparably vast. It was as if the stars in the sky had turned into green light and fell, causing heaven and earth to tremble. Thousands of divine lights carried all kinds of attacks as they swept toward Chu Bei and the other two in a densely packed manner. Rumble. Amidst the rumbling thunder, tens of thousands of lightning bolts suddenly appeared in the sky and enveloped Chu Bei and the other two. The dense divine light attacks lasted for a full minute before gradually dissipating. However, even after the heavenly jade saintess had used all her might and the light had faded, Chu Bei did not move a single step. He still stood there unscathed and was not affected at all. Sensing that her attacks were ineffective again, the heavenly jade saintess's glabella actually showed some black patterns. Stop struggling. This is just a form of torture for you. Get rid of it soon. The heavenly jade saintess's aura continued to rise. However, before she could launch another attack, Chu Bei's calm and indifferent voice rang out. In the next moment, a ball of light emitting a holy aura appeared in Chu Bei's palm. The dazzling golden light in the ball of light rapidly compressed. In an instant, it passed through the heavenly jade saintess and disappeared into the horizon. This was a grade 11 product that he had pawned. Although it was not much of a threat to the living, it had a strong suppressive effect on the dead. In particular, its purifying power was the nemesis of the dead. The golden light in the ball of light dissipated, and so did the heavenly jade saintess. I'm free. It's good that I'm free. The old lunatic who had left earlier appeared again, crying and laughing. Then, he disappeared in a crazed manner. Boss, you. Gzus stared blankly at the direction where the heavenly jade saintess had disappeared. When her gaze returned to Chu Bei, there was only shock in her eyes. She knew that Boss Chu was very powerful. She had even thought that he might have the strength of a divine lord and be on par with her father. However, no matter what, she did not expect Boss Chu to be so powerful that he could easily kill a desolate slave in the forbidden land of the primordial era. It could even be described as effortless. It was not just Ji Ziyue. Even Yi Fan had a new understanding of Chu Bei. The latter's strength was like an invisible bottomless pit. Along the way, he had always been so calm and collected. No matter what kind of enemy he encountered, he seemed to be able to suppress them with a raise of his hand. Boss, did you survive from the primordial era? Are you really an old friend of the distant ancestor? For some reason, Ji Ziyue actually believed what Chu Bei had said before. Chu Bei smiled and did not answer Ji Ziyue's question. Instead, he stretched out his finger and pointed at the 3 thumb-sized fruits not far away. Yi Fan, your physique can turn the elements into lightning. You should be fine if you eat 2 of them. Circulate the Tao scripture and use the power of the sage medicine to build a divine bridge. You can also refine the cauldron. After saying that, Chu Bei shifted his gaze from Yi Fan to Ji Ziyue. As for you, let me help you refine them. Following Chu Bei's instructions, Yi Fan plucked 2 golden fruits and placed them in his mouth before chewing them gently. The moment the fruits entered his mouth, they melted into nectar. All the pores on his body instantly relaxed, and he felt as if he was about to ascend to the heavens. He felt as if he was about to leave the ground and float in the air. Yi Fan immediately sat down cross-legged and began to circulate the mystic technique recorded in the Tao scripture when he sensed the miraculous power that did not return to the sea of bitterness and did not enter the divine spring. As for Ji Ziyue, she had just swallowed 1 fruit. The feeling of her body exploding had just surged up when she heard the rumbling of thunder. At that moment, the feeling of her body exploding disappeared and was replaced by a comfortable feeling. She immediately circulated her family scripture and began to refine the fruit's medicinal power with the help of the power of lightning. Time passed by slowly. Yi Fan's body continued to rumble. Tsunamis rose to the sky and thunder rumbled. Looking over, the golden sea of bitterness had already expanded to the size of a fist. A cold rainbow hung high in the sky. It was extremely dazzling. In just 1 day, he had formed his divine pulse above the life spring. He was suspended above the sea of bitterness and had become a divine bridge realm cultivator. Feeling the power in his body that was several times stronger, Yi Fan opened his eyes and stood up. Compared to before, there was a hint of calmness and simplicity. Boss, not only did I build a divine bridge, but I also successfully refined the prototype of a weapon. Yi Fan respectfully cupped his fists at Chu Bei. Then, with a thought, a small cauldron suddenly rushed out of his body and floated silently in the sky. A cauldron with 2 ears and 3 legs. Tao gives birth to 1, 1 gives birth to 2, 2 gives birth to 3, 3 gives birth to all living things. All living things carry yin and embrace yang. Not bad. Chu Bei praised. Although the cauldron formed by Yi Fan was only in its prototype form, it already had a feeling of Tao and nature. It already contained the Tao and principles of heaven and earth. It was mysterious and profound. I'm looking forward to the moment when you break all the rules with 1 weapon. Chu Bei smiled knowingly. Not long after, Ji Ziyue slowly opened her eyes. Unlike Yi Fan's calmness, Ji Ziyue hugged Chu Bei excitedly when she saw the life spring and the divine bridge that had been successfully formed in her body. She was so excited that it was as if she wanted to give Chu Bei a few bites. Boss, you're so awesome. You actually helped me break through 2 levels. I really admire you. I think my body can still take it. Why don't you send me directly into the Tao Palace secret realm? Ji Ziyue looked at Chu Bei with anticipation. You're just too greedy. Chu Bei rolled his eyes at Ji Ziyue. Don't you know that you can't bite off more than you can chew? Everything has to be done slowly. In the next 2 hours, Chu Bei used his observation haki to plunder the sacred fruits in the forbidden area of the ancient antiquity and contributed them all to the system. Now, His cultivation conversion progress had reached 62%. Boss, where are you taking us now? GZUS stared at Chu Bei. I'm taking you guys to join in the fun. Chu Bei smiled and pointed to the east of the forbidden area of the ancient antiquity, where the bronze immortal palace was located. With a wave of his hand, a rainbow light flashed and disappeared with He Fan and GZUS. Chapter 278. 30 kilometers to the east of the forbidden area of the remote antiquity. Purple clouds surged in the sky, bringing with it a faint whistling sound. It was extremely eerie. At this moment, there were tens of thousands of people floating below the purple clouds. Apart from the various human forces, there were also some demon clans. The phenomenon appeared 3 days ago. Why hasn't the bronze immortal palace appeared yet? Could it be that this is not the sign of the bronze immortal palace's appearance as recorded in the ancient books? Is it just a normal phenomenon? Impossible. The bronze immortal palace appears once every 3,000 years. Every time it appears, it will shine brightly. That's what's happening now. If the ancient books are correct, today is the day the bronze immortal palace appears. But then again, the waiting time is indeed a bit long. The tomb of the Shifter Emperor appeared just like that. It's so fast that we can't react in time. What do you think is in the bronze immortal palace? It has been recorded several times. But why is there no description of it? Because those who went in never came out. Are they dead? Then why are all the major forces rushing here? Death is just one possibility. There's another saying that the bronze immortal palace has the opportunity to become an immortal. Perhaps those who went in have already become an immortal. Because of this, those sect leaders and grand elders who have no hope of breaking through and don't have much time left would come here to try their luck. Everyone present raised their heads to look at the boundless purple clouds in the sky, and discussions broke out everywhere. Say, those sacred grounds and remote antiquity families have already arrived. Why haven't their sacred masters and family leaders arrived yet? Don't worry. The appearance of the bronze immortal palace is a big deal. They might be late, but they definitely won't be absent. Boom, boom, boom. Just then, a rumbling sound came from the distant sky, as if thousands of soldiers and horses were galloping. In an instant, hundreds of riders were sitting on all kinds of mystical beasts. Their killing intent soared into the sky, and their battle intent was high. All the beasts were shining with divine light, and their scales were awe-inspiring. Their feet didn't touch the ground. They were 3 feet above the ground and galloped in the sky like a tsunami. A majestic aura shook all directions. The hundreds of riders were covered in divine armor, and their killing intent filled the air. Those eastern wilderness overlords are here. Everyone exclaimed and looked up into the distance. Boom! Rumble! Under everyone's gazes, 50 bronze chariots appeared behind the 100 powerful knights. The chariots were stained with black blood and covered with blade scars and sword holes. They recorded their glory and emitted an ancient and desolate aura. 50 ancient bronze chariots crushed through the sky, releasing ear-splitting noises as vast as a tsunami. Compared to the knights, the cultivators on the war chariot released even more terrifying fluctuations. The sky seemed to be about to be crushed by them. The wheels rolled, and the ancient war chariot crossed the void. On both sides of the ancient chariot, dozens of divine rainbows stood in an orderly manner, guarding a special chariot. Yaoguang Holy Land's war chariot. 7-colored carriage. Wavering Light's sacred master has indeed come personally. Just as the war chariot came to a stop and occupied a part of the void under the boundless purple light, a phoenix cry suddenly came from the west, resounding through the horizon. The feathers of the 9 birds were extremely dazzling. They flickered with rays of divine splendor. They had 5-colored bodies and were over 10 meters long. They looked very much like the legendary phoenix divine birds. They pulled a 5-colored divine chariot from afar and arrived in the blink of an eye. Those 9 birds definitely have the divine blood of the phoenix flowing in their veins. They are the descendants of the divine bird. It's the G family's 9 phoenix chariot. The G family's master's chariot. Look to the south. The Zhang family is also here. In the south, the roars of savage beasts shook the sky, causing people's ears to buzz and their souls to tremble. 9 strange beasts with golden divine holes pulled a jade chariot that was flickering with divine light. They soared through the clouds and gave off thunderous noises. It's the Jiang family's divine armadillo chariot. Only the Jiang family's master can ride it. The fairies of the Jade Lake's sacred ground are also here. Is that white-clothed fairy on the rainbow the Jade Lake sacred master? In the southwest, a few ladies stepped on green lotuses, their clothes fluttering in the wind. The leader was a white-clothed lady. The rainbow behind her was beautiful and carried a holy aura at the same time. Soon, the wavering light sacred ground, the Jiang family, the Ji family, and the Jade Lake sacred ground occupied the east, west, south, and north of the boundless purple light. All the overlords of the eastern wilderness are here. It seems like they are all determined to get the opportunity in the bronze immortal palace. Everyone looked up at the sky and exclaimed, "They may be powerful, but that doesn't stop us from fishing in troubled waters. If we're lucky, we might even be able to obtain an immortal opportunity." Some earth cultivators looked expectantly at the surging rays of light in the sky, hoping to get lucky. The remote antiquity families and sacred grounds didn't communicate at all. They just occupied one area each and paid attention to the situation in the boundless purple light. Little Ziyue, your family is quite ostentatious. Among the tens of thousands of people, 3 figures appeared out of nowhere on a huge rock. Yifan glanced in the direction of the Ji family in the sky as a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. Of course, our Ji family has a arch among our ancestors. We are a family that has been passed down since the remote antiquity era. Ji Ziyue gritted her teeth and raised her head slightly. Her voice was full of pride. Chu Bei didn't pay attention to the forces in the sky. Instead, he looked at a fat Taoist priest with a ruddy face, and a smile gradually appeared on his face. Although the fat Taoist priest looked fat, his movements were very agile. He walked among the crowd, and every time he passed by a person, one or several rays of light would light up on his body. "Little fatty, we meet again." Chu Bei took a step forward and instantly appeared next to the fat Taoist priest. "You've gained quite a lot." The fat Taoist priest frowned when he heard a familiar voice. He was stunned for a moment, but when he saw who it was, his body suddenly trembled. The joy that he had gained from the bountiful harvest was instantly replaced by a bitter expression. "Boss, what a coincidence. I didn't expect you to be here too." The fat Taoist priest immediately put on a flattering smile and took the space bag in his hand. Ever since he was robbed the day before, he immediately investigated the person in front of him. He found out that even the people from the sacred land and the remote antiquity family had been robbed by him. The Thearch's heart, Middle Stream's ultimate treasure, and the Taoist scripture were all taken by him. "Duanda, you're really wicked. You're stealing again." Yifan also appeared next to Chu Bei and looked at Duanda in disdain. "****, what are you talking about? Do you want me to strip you?" Duanda glared at Yifan fiercely, then he winked at Chu Bei. "Boss, ever since you robbed me yesterday, I've been penniless. However, I sense the existence of a weapon on you. With your ability, you can't suppress them. Since you formed a good relationship with me, I naturally have the obligation to get rid of the evil for you." A teasing voice was heard. Duanda only felt a breeze blowing past him. In the next second, the space bag that he was holding tightly fell into Chu Bei's hand. "Boss, it's not easy for me to live. You can't be so poor." Looking at the space bag that appeared in Chu Bei's hand that he had stolen painstakingly, Duanda instinctively wanted to curse. However, when he thought of the other party's methods, he immediately said, "You're lacking in compassion. So many weapons. You have to believe me. I'm really doing this for your own good." Chu Bei glanced at the treasures in the space bag and casually contributed them to the system. "I've worked for nothing. I've worked for nothing." Duanda was disheartened. He swayed his body and collapsed on a rock. He looked like he had lost his soul. Buzz. Suddenly, Chu Bei's mind buzzed. Duanda's name appeared on the proxy suggestion column. Chu Bei was stunned. When he came back to his senses, he looked at Duanda and said with a smile, "When the bronze immortal palace appears, I'll give you an opportunity." What opportunity? Duanda could not wait to ask when he heard Chu Bei's words. An opportunity that can allow you to become an immortal. Chu Bei tidied his clothes. Become an immortal? Duanda gulped. Then, as if he had been injected with chicken blood, he jumped up and said excitedly, "Thank you, boss." Swoosh. While the humans were focused on the Holy Land and the remote antiquity families, a long rainbow arrived from the east. However, this long rainbow landed in the direction of the demon army. Which big shot of the demon clan is here? My God, such a young guy. Is he a human or a demon? Even the golden black ape at the peak of the dragon realm is so respectful to him. Who on earth is he? Judging from the respect of those demons, he seems to have a high status in the demon clan. As the long rainbow landed in front of the demon army, the humans instantly turned their attention to it. It was a young man about 16 or 17 years old. He was thin and looked a little weak. His face was delicate and pretty. His black hair was soft, and his eyes were as clear as a lake. At first glance, this young man looked like a clear spring deep in the mountains. He gave off a refreshing and natural feeling. I can't believe you're still alive. Suddenly, a majestic voice came from the seven-colored carriage of the wavering light Holy Land. If you're not dead, how can I pass away? The young man from the demon clan hovered in the air quietly. His soft black hair fluttered gently as he smiled. Who is that young man from the demon clan? Judging from their conversation, he seems to know the wavering light Holy Master, and they're from the same era. The humans looked at each other. Boss, do you know his identity? Ji Ziyue pointed at the young man in front of the demon army and asked. A junior, Chu Bei said indifferently, but you seem to call him Peacock King? Junior Peacock. What? He's Peacock King. Ji Ziyue mumbled. When she realized what was going on, her mouth was wide open and her beautiful eyes were filled with shock. Almost at the same time, the humans confirmed the young man's identity through the conversation between the wavering light Holy Master and the young man from the demon clan. In an instant, a commotion broke out. Such a delicate-looking young man is the Peacock King who was once famous in the southern region. 800 years ago, he was invincible in the southern region. After so many years of silence, I thought he had passed away. I can't believe he's still alive. He must have come out this time for the Bronze Immortal Palace. I heard that when the wavering light Holy Master fought with him back then, neither of them could defeat the other. Now that so many years have passed, I wonder what level they're at now. Everyone looked at the young man from the demon clan in shock. Apparently, they knew more or less about this powerful demon. Who was the Peacock King? A powerful demon from the demon clan. 800 years ago, he had swept across the southern region of the eastern wilderness. He had countless glorious achievements and had never been defeated since his debut. Chapter 279. Conservatively speaking, he should be more than 2,000 years old, Ji Ziyue muttered as she looked at the Peacock King. Yi Fan was surprised. If he was born on Earth, he would be an old monster born during the Qin and Han dynasties. It was also because of the Peacock King's youthful appearance that the humans were so astonished. They had thought that the Peacock King would be as majestic as a mountain with a domineering aura. However, they had not expected that he would not have aged at all. He looked like he was only 16 or 17 years old. He was like a snow lotus on an ice mountain or a breeze on a pure land. Swoosh! Suddenly, there was another piercing sound. In an instant, another middle-aged man appeared beside the Peacock King. Green Dragon King. Everyone felt their mouths go dry when they heard the deep voice from the Ji family's war chariot. Another terrifying existence from the demon clan had arrived. The Green Dragon King was a demon clan almighty who had been famous before the Peacock King. The Bronze Celestial Palace was left behind by the immortals of the human clan. Why are you demons here? The Alcade sacred leader snorted. A terrifying aura surged out of the seven-colored war chariot and swept toward the demon clan. Let's not talk about whether there are immortals in this world. How are you so sure that the Bronze Celestial Palace is the heritage of the human clan and not the demon clan? The Peacock King waved his hand and cut off the Alcade sacred leader's aura. He then said in a low voice, So what if the bronze celestial palace belongs to the human clan? Didn't you humans participate in the birth of the demon clan's emperor's tomb yesterday? Boss Chu stole the heart of the demon clan's emperor. Where is he now? The Green Dragon King roared after the Peacock King. His roar was deafening like rolling thunder. This Mr. Chu has a mysterious background. We're also looking for his whereabouts. After all, the Central Continent's supreme treasure and Taoist scripture are in his hands. The Jade Lake sacred leader's ethereal voice reverberated in the air. Boss, they are looking for you. Do you want to go out and show your face and intimidate everyone with your overbearing aura? Duanda looked at Chu Bei with a flattering face. The bronze immortal palace has yet to appear. Don't be impatient. Chu Bei glanced at Duanda and said with a faint smile, the bronze immortal palace has appeared, so how can we not get involved? Suddenly, a thunderous voice erupted, shaking the skies. A group of 70 to 80 people dashed over from the north. Each of them was riding on a savage beast. The beast's roar could be heard for dozens of miles. Their murderous aura soared to the sky. This was a group of powerful knights. Their bodies were suffused with a bloody aura, and it was obvious that they had killed people like scything flax. They had gathered an unimaginable amount of killing intent, and bloody light curled up around their bodies. 70 to 80 savage beasts roared, and their iron hooves shattered the sky. In the blink of an eye, they occupied a part of the sky. The person in the lead of this group was a gray-clothed middle-aged man, and he sat upright on a rhinoceros beast while his iron clothes flickered, causing him to seem extremely valiant. He held 3 large banners in his arms, and they fluttered about as if they could shatter the world. Every single one of them was scarlet red like blood, and a baleful aura surged into the heavens. It was as if they had drunk the blood of countless creatures. Clang, clang, clang. When he steadied himself, the 3 blood-red banners were thrown to the ground below. The flagpoles pierced the ground like pillars that supported the heavens, and their aura was like a mountain. The banners swayed and made clanging sounds, and bloody light soared into the sky. Who are they? They don't seem to be any weaker than the Holy Lands and remote antiquity families. Everyone's gazes were fixed on the man in the lead as they spoke in shock. Jiang family master, he is a member of your Jiang family. Aren't you going to say a few words? The Alcade's sacred leader's mocking voice rang out in the sky. However, no one from the Jiang family's war chariot spoke. There was only a faint sigh. After my elder brother, Jiang Zhe, left the Jiang family, I completely left this family. Don't mention this matter to me again. The middle-aged man riding on the rhinoceros beast glanced at the Jiang family's location, and then his gaze fell on the Alcade's sacred leader's location. His iron clothes flickered with cold light, and the 3 blood-red banners emitted ocean-like, terrifying fluctuations. In the next moment, he summoned a large banner with his right hand and threw it in the direction of the Alcade's sacred leader at an extremely fast speed. Jiang Yi, I haven't seen you for many years. You are still so hot-tempered. The Alcade's sacred leader's sarcastic voice rang out. Then, a pestle flew out from the war chariot and emitted divine light to meet the blood-red banner. Rumble. When the 2 weapons collided, the void instantly exploded and layers of ripples spread out. Jiang Yi? What a familiar name. The 9th Great Bandit of the North region, Jiang Yi. After the humans confirmed the middle-aged man's identity, they were all shocked. Jiang Zhe? Jiang Yi? Yi Fan repeated the 2 names. After a while, he said in surprise, Boss, could this 9th Great Bandit be Uncle Jiang's uncle and Xiaotingting's great-uncle? They are indeed related. Chu Bei nodded lightly. He focused his gaze and looked into the distance. There, another rainbow streaked across the sky. Brother Jiang, I haven't arrived yet, but you have already started fighting. Did someone mention your past again? A burst of laughter came from afar, and in an instant, a muscular man in a black robe with a full beard appeared beside Jiang Yi. The muscular man in the black robe held a clay jar in his hand. It was gray as if it was dug out from a pile of dirt. It was extremely old. However, upon closer inspection, this clay jar was no ordinary item. The mouth of the jar was like a black hole, and it seemed to have a powerful devouring power. The surrounding sky was distorted by it, as if it could suck everything in. He is the seventh great bandit in the North region, 2 Tion. A cultivator screamed. The North region was filled with the 5 largest source mines in the eastern wilderness. These source ores were occupied by various top factions, and there were also some bandit-like existences among them. Among these bandits, there were a total of 13 who were considered powerful. They were also known as the 13 Great Bandits. Other than Jiang Yi and 2 Tion, the Green Dragon King was also one of the 13 Great Bandits. Do you see the clay jar in 2 Tion's hand? That's an extreme weapon. This is also the reason why he can be one of the 13 Great Bandits. With this extreme weapon, almost no one can kill him. With an extreme weapon, it is impossible to break through. What is an extreme weapon? Is it so powerful? Only weapons refined by ancient great emperors can be called extreme weapons. If one can wield its true power, it is simply unimaginable. Those sacred grounds and remote antiquity families should also have extreme weapons. After all, they have been passed down from the remote antiquity, and they have all given birth to great emperors. There is a record about 2 Tion's clay jar. It was a great emperor from the remote antiquity. When he was about to die, he used his primordial spirit as the fire, his unparalleled flesh and blood as the clay, and supplemented it with endless legendary divine materials. He used his own body to forge this clay jar, and thus left behind an extreme weapon for his descendants. It's a pity that the clay jar lacks a seal and is incomplete. Otherwise, he could roam the eastern wilderness with this jar alone. However, even if he only has half of it, as long as he has enough divine power to support it, it is absolutely impossible for anyone here to take him down. Everyone's eyes began to focus on the gray clay jar in 2 Tion's hand as they discussed animatedly. Treasure, a real treasure. If we can get it and combine it into one, we will really be rich. Duanda stared at the clay jar, his eyes shining. Boss, is that jar really as magical as they say? Yifan looked at Chu Bei and asked. This clay jar is called the sky-devouring demonic jar. It was transformed from the flesh of a great emperor. Chu Bei smiled faintly. This was transformed from the flesh of great Emperor Ruthless in his first life. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Right at this moment, the boundless purple clouds in the distant sky suddenly surged, and a terrifying aura that made one's heart palpitate gushed out from the sky. Is the bronze celestial palace about to appear? It appears once every 3,000 years. The records about the celestial palace are still in the ancient books. This time, no matter whether we can get an opportunity or not, as long as we can see it with our own eyes, we will have no regrets. Almost at the same time, everyone's eyes were focused on the purple clouds in the sky. A figure flew out from the chariots of the wavering light holy ground, the Jiang family and the Ji family. They stood at the front of their respective forces with their hands behind their backs, exuding an aura of superiority. Look, something is falling. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, layers of ripples appeared in the boundless purple clouds. Following that, several balls of light floated out and slowly floated down. Corpses. These are wax corpses from the desolate antiquity era. When the light dissipated, when everyone saw what was in the balls of light, some of the cultivators cried out in alarm, and their faces turned pale. These corpses were sealed with a layer of wax, and their bodies looked like cocoons. They looked extremely evil. These corpses, as the corpses fell, the wavering light holy ground, the Jiang family's patriarch, the Green Dragon King, 2 Tion, and the other almighty experts sent out a strand of divine sense to investigate. They tried to find clues from the corpses to confirm their identities. Azura ring. This corpse is Bei Fengming. Finally, the wavering light holy ground confirmed the identity of one of the corpses. It was also because of this confirmation that a look of astonishment appeared in his eyes. At this moment, the Jade Lake holy ground seemed to have sensed something. She raised her hand to summon a wax corpse and peeled off the wax. Instantly, a lifelike human body was revealed. It was a woman. She was as beautiful as a flower, and she seemed to be in a deep sleep. However, in just an instant, the rosy woman shriveled up. Following that, her flesh and blood withered, and she turned into a skeleton. Her white bones shattered, and nothing was left behind. Master! Suddenly, the wavering light holy ground let out a mournful cry. His eyes were bloodshot as he looked at the dissipating ashes. Bei Fengming and the previous Jade Lake Holy Ground. Didn't they enter the bronze immortal palace before? Why did they turn into wax corpses? So they didn't become immortals. They died. How did they die? Could it be that there are no fortuitous opportunities in the bronze immortal palace? Could it be that we were all wrong? The bronze immortal palace is a trap. As the corpses were confirmed one after another, even the wavering light holy ground, the Peacock King, and the other almighty experts' expressions changed. In terms of strength, these wax corpses were all peerless experts when they were alive. However, in the end, they still ended up in such a miserable state. Chapter 280. Dare I ask the heavens if there are immortals? At this moment, the patriarch of the Jiang family exclaimed. In front of him was a snow-white skeleton, unlike the other corpses, which would disappear instantly after being stripped of their fat. This corpse had only turned into ashes, leaving the skeleton behind. What was even more shocking was that there were actually 8 dried blood words imprinted on the skull of the skeleton. Dare I ask the heavens if there are immortals? These 8 bloody words were black and red, and they were blurry. They had an indescribable charm, as if they were branded with the essence, energy, and spirit of this expert. They gave off a very special feeling, as if they were conveying some kind of emotion. When this person died, he must have been filled with regret and unwillingness. Ji Ziyue muttered softly as she bit her lips. What is an immortal? Above the Emperor realm, these little fellows are too ambitious. They have only taken half a step on the path of cultivation, and they are already thinking of ascending to the immortal realm. Chu Bei shook his head and sighed. Boss, how much do you know about the Bronze Immortal Palace? With your strength, how far have you walked on the path of cultivation? How far are you from ascending to the immortal realm? After hearing Chu Bei's words, Duanda put away his frivolous look and looked serious, as though he was trying to solve the doubts in his heart. Chu Bei did not answer Duanda's question. Instead, he said, since ancient times, many people have become great emperors. However, how many of them can ascend to the immortal realm? The path of cultivation is long. Those who become immortals must find a unique path. Your path is to reincarnate 9 times and return to 1. Only then can you step into the immortal realm. After hearing that, Duanda pondered for a moment. Then, he bowed deeply to Chu Bei and said, I am enlightened. Taoist immoral, are you suffering from a split personality? Yi Fan stared blankly at Duanda, whose temperament had undergone a drastic change, as though he was a completely different person. Believe it or not, I will tear your mouth off. Duanda glared at Yi Fan and resumed his frivolous attitude. Rumble. When there were no more corpses falling from the purple clouds, a huge black shadow suddenly appeared. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Amidst the strange sound, the purple clouds in the distant sky multiplied. In the blink of an eye, its area had expanded to cover the entire horizon. Everywhere one looked, there were purple clouds. Purple clouds surged as dense runes flickered with a strange light as they drifted down. At the same time, the huge black shadow within the purple clouds became more and more solid until it slowly emerged from the purple clouds and completely appeared in front of everyone's eyes. This was a huge copper palace, incomparably grand and majestic. Although there were green rust spots on its surface, it was still well preserved. It was simple and elegant. At first glance, it gave off an extremely desolate feeling. Is this the Bronze Immortal Palace? It's much bigger than I thought. This is almost the size of a town, right? Is there really an opportunity to become an immortal? Everyone in the human clan and the demon clan raised their eyes and stared at the colossus in the endless purple clouds, holding their breaths in concentration. Even the Alcade's sacred master, the Peacock King, and the other almighties stared at the sky without blinking. In front of the Bronze Immortal Palace, these almighties were no different from ordinary cultivators. For them, They also knew nothing about this bronze immortal palace. Chu Bei stood on a rock with his hands behind his back and released his observation haki to the extreme to investigate the bronze immortal palace. What surprised him was that even with his current observation haki, he couldn't completely perceive everything in the bronze immortal palace. But even so, he noticed countless life aura fluctuations, and among them, there was a powerful aura that made him feel a little troublesome. Right now, he had already exchanged for a level 11 item. This item gave him enough power to easily crush a Do-D existence that could break through a plane. Boss, what are you thinking about? Is there something strange about this bronze immortal palace? Yifan noticed Chu Bei frowning and immediately asked, "Let's take it one step at a time." Chu Bei narrowed his eyes, and his face was slightly dignified. "Boss, is there a terrifying existence in that immortal palace?" GZUS seemed to have guessed something and asked tentatively. Chu Bei nodded slightly. "Maybe we'll know soon. I just did a divination for myself, and it's not good. I think it's better for me to slip away first." Duanda put his hands together and sighed towards the huge immortal palace in the sky, and was about to leave. However, before he could fly away, he was imprisoned by a force. "Boss, why don't you let me leave?" Duanda looked at Chu Bei with a sad face. Chu Bei smiled. "I said I would give you an opportunity. Why are you in a hurry to leave? Why? Have you divined that there is a terrifying existence in that immortal palace?" Rumble. In the distant sky, the bronze immortal palace began to tremble violently, and a terrifying sound directly appeared in the minds of everyone present. Some cultivators with weak cultivation, under this sound wave, directly covered their ears with their hands in pain, and fell to the ground and rolled. Fortunately, this terrifying sound only lasted for 3 minutes before completely dissipating. Swoosh, swoosh. When the bronze immortal palace stabilized, the endless purple clouds suddenly surged with majestic spiritual energy. Under the shroud of this spiritual energy, everyone felt their exhaustion dissipate, and every cell in their body became active. Just as everyone was immersed in this comfortable feeling, with the sound of air being torn apart, balls of light shot out from within the purple clouds, hundreds of them. The objects contained within these balls of light were all different. There was a long spear that flickered with light, a folding fan that was covered in runes, a dagger that was coiled with a cold light. In addition to all kinds of weapons, there were also all kinds of rare herbs and spirit pills. These opportunities given to us by the bronze immortal palace? The light is dense. They are all treasures. No matter what, I have to get one. With the treasures, my strength will definitely increase by 2 levels. Looking at the balls of light floating in the sky, the tens of thousands of people in the field were stunned at first, and when they came to their senses, the world instantly boiled. All kinds of rainbows swept up from below, grabbing the treasures and the balls of light in the sky. Bang, bang, bang. In a short while, the originally peaceful sky became a bloody battlefield. The various forces of the human race and the demon race fought together. Light flashed continuously, and Taoist techniques were endless. The continuous deafening battle sounds were mixed with sharp and excited roars. "Wicked fatty, you treat treasures as your life. There are so many treasures up there. Why don't I see you fighting with them?" Yifan pointed at the battlefield in the sky. Life Spring cultivators, Divine Bridge cultivators, Nirvana Realm cultivators, and other cultivators of various realms were fighting together, and it was getting more and more chaotic. Anyone who obtained a treasure would instantly become the target of the nearby cultivators' joint attack. In the end, they would either throw the treasure away or dye the sky red with blood. My intuition is telling me that I can't take these treasures. I can't take them. Duanda rubbed his fingers like a fortune teller. As for Chu Bei, his thoughts were not on the battlefield in the sky, but on the bronze immortal palace. His intuition was not wrong. There was indeed a terrifying existence in the immortal palace, and it was a conscious existence. Just now, when these treasures appeared from the purple clouds in the sky, he sensed the fluctuations of that existence's divine sense. In short, these treasures were thrown out under the control of that mysterious existence, and were not bestowed by the so-called bronze immortal palace. As the battle in the sky continued, a large number of cultivators began to bleed. There were even some cultivators who could not escape the battlefield in time and were directly killed. Blood sprinkled from the sky, and the ground began to be dyed bright red, as if it was a gloomy hell. Chu Bei's observation hockey locked onto the existence in the Bronze Immortal Palace. He could clearly feel that as the number of casualties on the battlefield increased, the latter's aura began to faintly strengthen, and there was a hint of bloodlust in its excitement. The top forces such as the Holy Land, the remote Antiquity family, the Peacock King, and the Northern Region bandits that each occupied an area did not participate in the battle for the treasures in the sky. Although these treasures were of extraordinary quality, they were only useful to cultivators in the Sea of Reincarnation, Tao Palace, and Four Extremities realms. They were not of much help to cultivators in the Dragon realm, let alone those who had stepped into the Immortal Foundation realm. Enter the palace. The Alcade Sacred Leader, the Jade Lake Sacred Leader, the Ji family's Patriarch, the Jiang family's Patriarch, the Peacock King, the Green Dragon King, Jiang Yi, and Tu Tian were the 8 most powerful cultivators present. After looking at each other, they actually flew toward the huge Bronze Immortal Palace in the sky at the same time. Perhaps it was because of the mysteriousness of the Bronze Immortal Palace, or perhaps it was because of the ancient era's corpse that appeared previously, but these 8 cultivators actually stood on the same side. Boom! Just as the 8 cultivators flew into the purple clouds and were about to enter the Bronze Immortal Palace, a low, muffled sound drifted from the void. In the next moment, the Bronze Immortal Palace trembled slightly, and layers of ripples spread out with it as the center. In an instant, the 8 cultivators were sent flying by an invisible force. After stabilizing themselves, the Alcade's Sacred Leader, the Peacock King, and the other cultivators looked at each other. This Bronze Immortal Palace was not as easy to enter as they thought. Let's attack together. In the buzzing sound, the 8 cultivators released their auras at the same time. Their bodies shone brightly, and their terrifying auras instantly rose to the maximum. Then, they condensed the energy in their bodies and turned it into a beam of light. Together, they struck the purple clouds above their heads. Boom! Along with a loud bang, the boundless purple clouds only rolled a little before there was no more movement. Brother 2, why don't you try your clay pot and see if it can swallow the purple clouds directly? Zhang Yi looked at Tu Tian, who was next to him. However, before Tu Tian could reply, there was an extremely powerful and terrifying fluctuation in the void. It was as vast and unpredictable as the ocean, and it rolled in all directions. Dead, dead. All of them are dead. It's coming, it's coming. If you don't leave now, all of you will die. All of you will die. A pitch-black gap appeared out of nowhere, and a white-haired old madman walked out with empty eyes. He was mumbling, crying, and laughing at the same time. He kept repeating the same words. It's the old madman in the Forbidden Land. He's actually still alive. Looking at the old madman who suddenly appeared, the 8 cultivators' expressions changed. They were a little dazed. Obviously, every single one of them knew something about this crazy old man. Everyone is dead. No one can survive. The old madman in tattered clothes glanced at the Alcade's Sacred Master and the others. With a step, he pierced through the void and arrived in front of the Jiang family head. He grabbed the latter's arm, crying and laughing crazily. I can already see the scene of rivers of blood and mountains of corpses suddenly being grabbed by the old madman. The Jiang family head panicked. However, what frightened him was that the moment the old madman grabbed him, the spiritual energy in his body was suppressed. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't get rid of the old madman's hands. The Alcade's Sacred Master, the Peacock King, and the others seemed to have noticed the situation of the Jiang family head. They all looked at the old madman with vigilance. This madman was recorded in the ancient books. When he took a step, there was no trace of him at all. The runes under his feet seemed to contain the profound meaning of the great Tao. Endless bones, mountains of corpses, and seas of blood. It is here again. Fortunately, the white-haired old madman soon let go of the Jiang family head and continued to cry and laugh. The old madman's repeated words echoed in their ears. Even the Peacock King, the Alcade's sacred master, and the other powerful cultivators felt a headache and couldn't help but shudder. Do you know who this madman is? Look at the expressions of those powerful cultivators. They seem to be afraid of him. He's a figure from 6,000 years ago. He's the only one who survived after trying to conquer the forbidden land of the remote antiquity. 6,000 years ago. What realm is this old madman in now? Has he touched the immortal realm? In the chaotic sky battlefield, some of the cultivators who had left the battle changed their expressions when they saw the old madman. Boss, this poor old man has appeared again. Why don't you help him? Boss, you're so powerful that even the heavenly Jade Saintess couldn't last more than one round against you. With your divine power, you can definitely help him. Yifan and Jiziwa looked at the old madman who had appeared again in the distant sky and felt pity for him. However, Chu Bei wasn't in the mood to deal with those two at the moment. Just now, the being in the bronze immortal palace had sent a divine consciousness to him. It seemed that he had discovered Chu Bei's perception. Perhaps because the divine consciousness couldn't return, the being in the bronze immortal palace's bloodthirsty excitement had slowed down. He seemed to be more vigilant against Chu Bei. That year, the setting sun was like blood, and the heavenly Jade Saintess was bathed in blood. That day, everything withered, and the heavenly Jade Saintess fell. The old madman suddenly quieted down. He sat cross-legged in the void and kept crying. His old eyes were cloudy. As he spoke, two rays of dazzling light suddenly shot out from his eyes and pierced through the void. The sadness in his eyes disappeared, and he suddenly stood up. In an instant, he seemed to have changed into a different person. He was like a peerless sword that revealed its sharpness, causing the world to fall silent. Everyone on the noisy battlefield trembled in fear. At this moment, whether it was the Alcade's sacred lord, the Jiang family head, or the Peacock King, they all felt a great pressure from the old madman's aura. Fortunately, this aura wasn't targeted at any one of them. Otherwise, even with their strong physical bodies, they wouldn't be able to withstand it and would have their bones and tendons broken. The old madman mumbled and began to wander between everyone on the battlefield. He was like a mountain, exuding a great pressure. Everyone within 5 meters of him couldn't move. This old man, what realm is he at? Tu Tian held the clay jar in his hand tightly and couldn't help but shiver. This old madman was too terrifying. He was far stronger than any cultivator he had ever met. Chapter 281. Whoosh! Suddenly, Crazy Ol stopped and waved his right hand. An image appeared in the sky. In the image, countless white bones were densely packed on the mountain ridge. There were 9 sacred mountains, and each of them was covered with bones. What kind of ability is this? Everyone present was flabbergasted. Being able to restrain a living shadow with just a light brush was truly unheard of and unheard of. The forbidden area of the desolate ancient. This is the forbidden area of the desolate ancient. Soon, someone recognized the 9 sacred mountains in the image. However, what really shocked Alcade's sacred master, Peacock King, and the others was the huge object floating above the sacred mountains. The bronze immortal palace. It was the bronze immortal palace in front of them, looking at the eerie bones in the image and the bronze immortal palace in the sky above. Everyone felt their hair stand on end. Could it be that the destruction of the heavenly jade sacred ground was not only related to the forbidden area of the desolate ancient, but also the bronze immortal palace? While everyone was guessing, Crazy Ol waved his right hand again and the image changed. A woman in white was hovering on top of a mountain. She had bright eyes and white teeth. Her figure was light and graceful. Her beauty was unparalleled. She was so beautiful that it was indescribable. The woman in white looked ahead. There were 3 figures standing in front of her, and behind them were 3 thumb-sized fruits. Impossible. The moment the new image appeared, the Ji family patriarch's pupils suddenly shrank. His eyes focused on a girl among the 3 figures. In the air, the Ji family patriarch was shocked. He stared at the image that Crazy Ol waved his hand. Even though he had been in a high position for a long time, when he saw the purple-dressed girl in the image, His emotions couldn't help but fluctuate violently. Old bastard. Why is Ziyue in the forbidden area of the desolate ancient? Where is she now? The Ji family patriarch suddenly rushed toward Crazy Ol as if he had gone mad. However, before he could attack, rolling thunder appeared in the image and annihilated the heavenly jade sacred lady in an instant. She's free. She's free. Great. Crazy Ol's eyes became hollow again. He laughed crazily, and the scene on the screen was fixed on the three figures. At that moment, everyone in the sky battlefield, the Alcade Sacred Master, the Peacock King, Tu Tian, and the other Almighties were all focused on the person in the middle. He's Boss Chu. On the battlefield, a few people who had seen Chu Bei with their own eyes were stunned for a moment before they cried out in surprise. It was also because of this uniform shout that the atmosphere, which had fallen silent under Crazy Ol's pressure, was reignited, and every corner was filled with clamor. When did this happen? Could it be that Boss Chu is also a character from 6,000 years ago? Impossible. Do you see the girl next to him? She was the little princess of the Ji family of the ancients. In my opinion, this scene should be from today or tomorrow. The forbidden land of remote antiquity has a terrifying power that can devour time. Why are the three of them not affected? Could it be that the terrifying power in the forbidden land has disappeared with the passage of time? Or is Boss Chu's cultivation so powerful that he doesn't fear the power of time? On the battlefield, the topic of discussion revolved around the azure-robed man, standing with his hands behind his back. Is he the human who stole the heart of the great emperor? The Peacock King looked at the black gold ape behind him and asked, "Senior, it's him." The black gold ape pointed at the azure-robed man in the image and said with certainty. Hearing this, the Peacock King's delicate face turned solemn. Although he couldn't directly feel the terrifying energy contained in the light ball in Chu Bei's palm, it must be extraordinary since it could easily kill the heavenly jade holy lady from 6,000 years ago. Boss, we're in Crazy Ol's image. We've become the focus of attention. Yi Fan glanced at the sky and murmured, "Boss, Dad seems to be very worried. I want to go and say hi to him." Ji Ziyue bit her lips and pointed at the Ji family master. However, since Chu Bei didn't say anything, she didn't dare to fly to the Ji family master. "Boss, can you bring little Dao along the next time you enter the forbidden land of remote antiquity? There are great opportunities there." Duanda looked in the direction of the forbidden land of remote antiquity with longing in his eyes. It's here. However, Chu Bei didn't care about Yi Fan, Ji Ziyue, and the other two. His expression changed slightly as he uttered two indifferent syllables. "It's here? What's here?" Hearing this, Yi Fan, Duanda, and Ji Ziyue were confused. Just as they were about to ask, the purple clouds in the sky surged. Then, a huge, pitch-black hole appeared below the bronze divine palace. From the hole, a ball of light shot out rapidly and hovered above the Alcade Sacred Leader, Jade Lake Sacred Leader, Peacock King, Tu Tian, and the other Almighties. It was a dawn stone with a diameter of 10 meters. Unlike the dawn stones dug out from the Primordium ancient mine, this dawn stone was completely purple and had a very smooth surface. It was surrounded by layers of hazy purple gas. I've been to all the mines in the North region, but I've never seen such a dawn stone. Jiang Yi focused on the purple dawn stone. Just as he finished his sentence, a large amount of blood gushed out from the surface of the dawn stone. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the bright red blood shone brightly and started to change rhythmically until a huge immortal was imprinted on the surface of the dawn stone. The immortal word shone brilliantly and dazzlingly as if it was formed by the bright red clouds. Immortal source. This must be the immortal source. It contains the secret to becoming an immortal. In the sky, the thousands of cultivators who were fighting for the precious artifacts stopped attacking at the same time and looked at the purple dawn stone. The blood-red immortal word was especially eye-catching. The Alcade Sacred Leader, the Peacock King, the Jiang family head, and the other Almighties stared at the purple dawn stone with burning eyes. Greed appeared in their eyes, and they were eager to take action. The bright blood-red word gave them a strange feeling. They didn't rush to fight for it. Instead, they calmed down and savored it carefully, trying to discover something from it. Purple fog flowed on the surface of the dawn stone, and the bright, immortal word had a unique and strange charm. Unknowingly, everyone was in a trance, as if they had touched an indescribable concept. Buzz, buzz. Suddenly, the purple dawn stone vibrated, and a wisp of fog separated from the surface of the dawn stone. In an instant, the weaker cultivators in the sky had a terrible change in expression. They were suppressed by an inexplicable power, and they couldn't breathe. This is the heaven and earth aura. Looking at the heavy purple mist that could crush a mountain ridge, the Alcade's sacred master was stunned for a moment before she cried out in surprise. What's the matter? Almost at the same time, the Peacock King, the Green Dragon King, and the other Almighties came to a realization. After confirming the origin of the fog on the surface of the purple dawn stone, they looked at each other and became more excited. The stars were in chaos, the yin and yang were mixed up, and the heaven and earth were overflowing. Ordinary people thought that the heaven and earth aura was denser than the spirit chi. However, real cultivators knew that the heaven and earth aura were the essence of heaven and earth. Therefore, the heaven and earth aura represented heaven and earth. Gosh, if the fog outside the dawn stone is really the heaven and earth aura, then what is inside the stone? Hearing the Alcade's sacred leader's exclamation, the cultivators in the field felt as if they had been struck by lightning, and their eyes widened. Boss, is that really the heaven and earth aura? It's the best holy artifact that only exists in legends. Jizue's face was full of shock, and her eyes were full of stars. Chubei nodded slightly in response to Jizue. However, his expression became more serious, and he was a little confused. This mysterious dawn stone that was wrapped in the heaven and earth aura was thrown out by the terrifying existence in the bronze divine palace. He did not understand. What was the other party's intention? What exactly was inside the origin stone? Little Yaya, tell me more about the heaven and earth aura. Yifan looked at Jizue blankly. Nameless, the beginning of heaven and earth, is Tao. Named, the mother of all things, is heaven and earth. The heaven and earth aura is the essence of heaven and earth. It is the source of all things, and it is the holy artifact that can refine all tangible substances. It is the rarest essence in heaven and earth, and it is the holy artifact that can be used to refine artifacts. Many powerful cultivators have searched for it their entire lives, but they could not find even a trace of it. Jizue looked at Yifan as if he was an idiot. If you use it to refine your artifact, you can condense Tao and truth and turn it into an extreme weapon. There is also another saying. If you absorb the heaven and earth aura into your body, you will eventually become an immortal. Extreme weapon. Become an immortal. After listening to Jizue's explanation, Yifan had a basic understanding of the heaven and earth aura. He lifted his eyes to look at the mist surrounding the purple dawn stone again, and he was shocked. Heartless fatty, aren't you tempted by the rare heaven and earth aura? It is an opportunity to become an immortal and a treasure for refining artifacts. Yifan looked at Duanda, who was beside him, and said in surprise, I have calculated with my fingers that this is a lethal artifact. With my current strength, I am still unable to control it. Umidba. Then, Duanda prayed devoutly. Essence of Mother Aura. The essence of the heaven and earth aura. It is a rare sight. If I can't get it, I will regret it until I die. Tu Tian glanced at the purple dawn stone that was floating above his head. As soon as he finished speaking, his sea of reincarnation shook, and a vast amount of spiritual energy was injected into the gray clay jar in his hand. In an instant, the clay jar lit up with a dazzling light, and a terrifying devouring power tore the surrounding void apart. Brother 2, let me lend you a hand. Seeing this, Jiang Yi took a step forward and appeared beside Tu Tian. Then, he injected another powerful force into the clay jar. Almost at the same time, the devouring power released by the clay jar multiplied. Under the terrifying devouring power, the purple dawn stone trembled slightly, and a little of the mist surrounding it was peeled off. It was slowly sucked into the clay jar. As expected, these almighties could not resist the temptation of the heaven and earth aura. They could not help but make a move. There is only one immortal source, but there are 8 almighties. I wonder who will get the immortal ascension opportunity. It is a pity that we are too weak. We don't even have the chance to fight for it. This immortal treasure cannot be taken away by a big thief like you. The G family head snorted when he saw that a little heaven and earth aura was about to enter the clay jar. Chapter 282. As the head of the G family snorted, he opened his 5 fingers, and a palm print as big as a small mountain instantly reached the purple source stone. Wherever it passed, the void distorted. In an instant, a prison formed by 5 fingers appeared around the purple source stone, locking down the space. It was also because of the appearance of the prison that the Xianhuang Qi that was about to be sucked into the jar was attracted by the purple source stone again and slowly returned. Obviously, the Ji family's head was using a secret technique that could seal off everything in the prison. Little Yeye, your father's skill is not bad. Yi Fan glanced at Ji Ziyue and said while looking at the majestic figure in the sky. Of course, although my father is not as powerful as the boss, he is still a powerful figure who stands at the top of the eastern wilderness. Moreover, the Great Void Technique is the supreme secret technique of the Ji family, the essence of the ancient void scripture. Ji Ziyue raised her head slightly, and her delicate face was filled with pride. The Great Void Technique is unpredictable and extremely mysterious. It is said that if you cultivate it to the peak, you can cross a star field. Duanda rubbed his hands and stared at Ji Ziyue with sparkling eyes. Little girl, I have some ancient treasures. Can I exchange them for your ancient void scripture? Get lost. Ji Ziyue shouted coldly and looked at Duanda as if she was looking at an idiot. The ancient void scripture is an immortal scripture created by our ancestors to observe all things and capture the immutable laws. It is the secret technique of the Ji family. Let me have a taste of your great void technique. In the sky, Jiang Yi moved. With a wave of his right hand, the 3 blood-red flags that were stuck in the ground below were uprooted. The 3 flags fluttered, and every time they swayed, they would shoot out beams of sword light that were invincible and sharp. Break! Jiang Yi shouted coldly. His hands danced, and the 3 blood-red flags shook violently like a flood, quickly changing their positions. At the same time, Jiang Yi's hands seemed to be filled with endless magic. Although his movements were slow, they revealed a terrifying aura that made people's hearts palpitate, resonating with the 3 blood-red flags. Bang! The void trembled as the 3 blood-red flags intertwined together like a giant roller. It rumbled through the void and headed toward the giant palm cage, not far away. Brother Jiang, this is a traitor of your Jiang family. Are you just going to stand aside and watch? The Ji family's patriarch glanced in the direction of the Jiang family's patriarch with an ugly expression. The master of the Jiang family shook his head. He didn't say anything, nor did he attack. He just sighed. As for the cultivators in the sky who were below the dragon realm, their expressions instantly changed. Under the pressure of the 3 blood-red flags, they swayed back and forth like duckweed in a raging sea, unable to control their bodies at all. Jiang Yi has actually cultivated the Jiang family's peri-celestial brute force to such a level. One of the Dragon Realm fighters could not help but exclaim when he recognized Jiang Yi's remarkable ability. Peri-celestial brute force was the top godly force of the controller. It had a demonic nature, and once it was cultivated to the peak, there was nothing it couldn't break and nothing could stop it. This supreme secret technique was the ultimate technique of the Jiang family's ancient scriptures. Just like the Ji family's Great Void Technique, it was the pinnacle secret technique of each ancient scripture. Rumble. The 3 overlapping blood-red flags made a clanging sound and suddenly bombarded the giant palm cage. With a deafening bang, the giant palm cage that was holding the purple dawn stone in place cracked and a circular gap appeared. Brother Tu, now is the time. Jiang Yi shouted. Tu Tian nodded heavily and used all his strength to take out the clay jar. The terrifying devouring power once again gushed out from the clay pot. Under this suction force, the giant palm prison, which already had a hole in it, directly turned into a rain of light fragments, which were sucked into the clay pot amidst a series of cracking sounds. Then, the purple dawn stone wobbled toward the clay jar. Do you think you're the only one who has an extreme weapon? With a cold snort, an ancient cauldron appeared in the Alcade Holy Lord's hand. The ancient cauldron floated up and down. There were dragon inscriptions on it. It was simple and unadorned, and chaotic fog gathered around it. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The ancient cauldron vibrated, and a beam of light hit the purple dawn stone directly, wrapping around it. In an instant, the dawn stone with the black and yellow aura outside was restrained by the ancient cauldron and the clay jar. It was like a tug of war, unable to advance or retreat. An extreme weapon, huh? I haven't used it in a long time. The master of the Jiang family sighed. Runes flickered on his hands, and a divine furnace made of crimson gold phoenix blood appeared in front of him. It shone brightly, and a majestic divine might surged. The surrounding space shook, and layers of ripples spread out. Rumble. The Jiang family head held the divine furnace and also hit the purple dawn stone with a beam of light. After the Jiang family head, the Jade Lake sacred leader, the Peacock King, and the Ji family head all took out their extreme weapons at the same time and hit the dawn stone with a beam of light. The Jade Lake sacred leader held a blue 9-story pagoda. One could vaguely see various images of mythical beasts on the pagoda. There was an azure dragon, a white tiger, a vermilion bird, a black tortoise, a cheelin, and so on. The Peacock King held a ruler with strange patterns all over it. The ruler was transparent and emitted a hazy glow. The Ji family head held an antique bronze mirror. However, the moment he injected spiritual power into it, the surface of the mirror was like a glaring sun. The dazzling golden light made it difficult to open one's eyes. Far away in the sky, the people holding the extreme weapons each took a position and circulated the spiritual power in their bodies with all their might. Tu Tian's clay jar, the wavering light sacred grounds dragon pattern cauldron, the Jiang family's eternal universe divine furnace, the Jade Lake sacred grounds immortal tier pagoda, the demon race's demon emperor ruler, and the Ji family's void mirror. I can't believe I'm seeing 6 extreme weapons at the same time. The cultivators in the sky were dumbfounded. At that moment, the 6 extreme weapons in the sky were controlled by 6 powerful cultivators. They each took a position and slowly approached the purple dawn stone in the center. Under the encirclement of the 6 extreme weapons, the Xinhuang Qi outside the purple dawn stone was slowly being stripped away. As for the dawn stone itself, perhaps because the energy of the 6 extreme weapons was clashing with each other, it was actually in a very balanced state. Roar. Suddenly, a roar broke the silence in the sky. The Peacock King took a step forward and reached out his hand to grab the purple source stone in the middle of the 6 supreme weapons. At that moment, the void behind him turned into a pitch-black starry sky, filled with stars. They were like diamonds embedded in the night sky, sparkling continuously. That was the Peacock King's sea of reincarnation avatar, stars illuminating the blue sky. Demon, how dare you? Almost at the same time, the wavering light sacred leader, the Jiang family leader, Tu Tian, and the Ji family leader also manifested their sea of reincarnation avatars. Rumble. In an instant, an extremely terrifying chaotic battle broke out in the sky. In the battlefield, 8 different sea of reincarnation avatars intertwined continuously. It was as if the Milky Way was descending, and divine light was radiating in all directions. The sky seemed to be burning in these intertwining gorgeous lights. Is that the Almighty's sea of reincarnation avatar? Every star is so terrifying. It's as if they can destroy the earth. They have unparalleled majestic pressure. Even though I'm so far away, I can still feel the pressure. With my strength, I'm afraid I'll be blasted into minced meat the moment I enter the battlefield. These fellows are really the overlords standing at the top of the eastern wilderness. Yeah, these techniques are really terrifying. Looking at the increasingly intense battle in the sky, the cultivators below were shocked and their hearts trembled. Under the terrifying power, their bodies made cracking sounds. Their joints were trembling, and they were under great pressure. As the battle between the 8 Almighties began, the group of cultivators below the dragon realm once again began to fight for the surrounding treasured weapons. In a short while, 2 battlefields formed in the sky above the mountain range. On one side, the 8 almighty experts fought for the purple energy stones. On the other side, the cultivators below the dragon realm fought for the treasures. Rumble. As time passed, the battle between the mountain range below and the bronze celestial palace in the purple clouds became more and more intense. The murderous aura was like a tide. Furnace return. In the battle between the Almighties, the Jiang family leader actually took the lead to call back the eternal universe divine furnace. He injected all his spiritual power into the furnace. In an instant, the space where the Jiang family leader was at produced an unparalleled, terrifying fluctuation. It was as if a vast ocean was surging, as if an ancient king was born, as if a god was looking down on the mortals. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Under the Jiang family leader's control, the eternal universe divine furnace shot out several light beams toward the other almighties. Splat! The green dragon king, who was closest to the furnace, was caught off guard. His chest was instantly pierced through, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Heavily injured, he immediately transformed into his beast form from his human form. His miserable wails shook the heavens and the earth. "Human, you're despicable," the Peacock King shouted angrily. His voice was filled with murderous intent. He then used all his strength to control the Demon Emperor Ruler. As he shouted, the Demon Emperor Ruler seemed to transform into an ancient ferocious beast. It opened its mouth and swallowed the heavens and the earth. In an instant, it sucked up all the spiritual essence in the space and whipped toward the eternal universe divine furnace. At the same time, a dragon's roar shook the sky. It was clear and distant, and it rang in the minds of all the cultivators present. The Alcade's sacred leader controlled the dragon pattern cauldron. Unparalleled divine power rushed out, causing the entire space to tremble. The Jade Lake sacred leader held the fairy tear pagoda in her hand. Behind her, a godly phoenix spread its wings. It was so huge that it covered half the sky. The aura of an ancient great emperor filled the air. In an instant, the battle between the 8 Almighties evolved into a battle between Almighties with extreme Dao weapons. Although there was only one more extreme weapon joining the battle, the intensity of the battle was far from what it had been before. Roar. With a roar, the Peacock King held the Demon Emperor Ruler and approached the purple source stone. However, before he could touch the purple source stone, he became the target of the other 5 extreme Dao weapons. In an instant, the Peacock King's body was pierced through by the 5 terrifying beams of light. He turned into a huge, 7-colored peacock. With a miserable shriek, the Peacock King immediately left the battlefield. If not for the protection of the Demon Emperor Ruler, he would have been turned into ashes by the previous attacks. Gradually, in the intense battle, the Almighties started to bleed. Perhaps it was because of their powerful recovery abilities or the temptation of the Purple Source Stone, but even though they were injured many times, they did not leave the battlefield. As for the cultivators below, most of them had already stopped fighting. It was as if they could not wait to escape. The aura of the battle between the Almighties made them feel suffocated. Among them, some of the weaker cultivators who were closer to the battle between the Almighties could not escape in time. They were bombarded into pieces by the aftershocks. The sky was shaking, the earth was shaking, and people's hearts were trembling. In one area, the murderous aura was getting thicker and thicker. There was endless fear and oppression. In the end, even Dragon Realm cultivators could not breathe. It was unbearable. Large amounts of red blood fell like raindrops, staining the ground. The smell of blood was pungent. Chapter 283. Endless bones, mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Greed. Because of your greed, you will see this scene again. It's here again. The old lunatic who was sitting far away and was almost ignored by everyone laughed maniacally again. He spun in the air and swung around leisurely. However, no one on the battlefield was paying attention to the old lunatic from 6,000 years ago. The Almighties who were holding the apex weapons were fighting with all their might. All they could see was the purple energy stone that was enveloped by the Xinhuang Qi. Is this the power of the apex weapons? Yifan looked at the battle above him in a daze and could not help but mumble. After the Almighties activated the apex weapons, their combat strength increased by a few levels. Treasure, my treasure. The fat Taoist priest, Duanda, had a golden glow in his eyes. He kept looking at the various apex weapons on the battlefield, as if he wanted to take all of them for himself. Ji Ziyue looked worried. Since the beginning of the battle, her eyes had been focused on the Ji family's patriarch. Every time she saw him bleeding, tears would gush out of her beautiful eyes. As for Chu Bei, his face was getting more and more serious. His divine consciousness was locked on the bronze immortal palace. Since the beginning of the battle, he had discovered that when a group of cultivators, including the 8 supreme experts, were seriously injured or killed, the blood essence they spat out would inexplicably disappear after a while, as if it was absorbed by a strange energy. Apart from that, the 6 apex weapons contained a small amount of the Great Emperor's aura. Every time a small amount was activated, it would mysteriously be taken away by a force. What made Chu Bei feel the most was that as the blood essence and the apex weapon's Great Emperor's aura disappeared, the presence in the bronze immortal palace's aura became more terrifying. It was getting stronger and seemed to be even more bloodthirsty. Boss Yu. Yifan looked at the solemn Chu Bei. Just as he was about to say something, the latter had turned into a beam of light. When he appeared again, he was already in the battlefield in the sky. Chu Bei reached out his right hand. Billowing ripples extended from his palm and wrapped around the purple energy stone. At first, the Almighties who were fighting fiercely did not notice Chu Bei, who had suddenly appeared on the battlefield. However, when they sensed an energy ripple that appeared out of nowhere wrapped around the purple source stone, the 6 apex weapons instinctively fired a beam of light in the direction of the ripple. Qila. 6 heaven-destroying, earth-shattering beams of light bombarded Chu Bei's body. However, when these light beams hit the surface of Chu Bei's body, the frightening power that could frighten a person's soul suddenly disappeared. The explosion that should have been earth-shattering was replaced by a soft, sizzling sound. The 6 beams of light dissipated, but Chu Bei didn't move at all. To be exact, his robes didn't even flutter. It was as if the terrifying attacks of these extreme weapons had no effect on him at all. Rumble. Amidst the deafening roar, Chu Bei ignored the 8 Almighties. He waved his right hand, and the energy ripples that wrapped around the purple energy stone suddenly shrank. The purple energy stone appeared in Chu Bei's palm in an instant along with it. When the purple energy stone appeared in his hand, all the cells in his body became active. A cool and comfortable feeling spread throughout his body. Chu Bei held the purple energy stone in his hand. He didn't rush to cut it open. Instead, he stared at the green bronze immortal palace in the purple clouds. He could feel that the existence in the green bronze immortal palace was staring at him. Its aura fluctuated violently, mixed with monstrous anger. Boss Chu. When they saw Chu Bei's appearance, the 8 Almighties were stunned at first. When they came to their senses, they exclaimed in unison, "Look, Boss Chu has appeared." It's exactly the same as what we saw in the previous image. However, why can't I feel any spiritual energy fluctuation from his body? Don't you know that Almighties can resonate with the spiritual energy in the universe? Such a powerhouse can completely conceal his aura. Was I seeing things just now? Why is he still completely unharmed when the attacks of 6 supreme weapons landed on his body at the same time? If I'm not wrong, he must have some supreme weapons on him too. However, when did Boss Chu appear? Was he here from the beginning? Then why did he only appear now? What's the point of attacking earlier? Just like now, it's better to seize the opportunity and hit the target with one strike. Look, didn't the immortal origin that the 8 Almighties were fighting over fall into his hands? He only got it temporarily. Next, he will have to face the joint attack of the 8 Almighties and the 6 supreme weapons. No matter how strong he is, he will have to hand over the immortal origin. As for who the immortal origin will belong to, it's hard to say. Chubei's appearance instantly became the focus of all the cultivators present. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Chubei as they discussed among themselves. Where is Ziyue now? The Ji family patriarch looked coldly at Chubei and immediately questioned him. He seemed to have forgotten about the purple source stone. Father, I'm fine. Boss is very good to me. Please don't attack him. Before Chubei could speak, Ji Ziyue shouted impatiently and waved her hand at the Ji family patriarch. Yue, why is your cultivation level? The Ji family patriarch's expression changed as he scanned Ji Ziyue with his divine consciousness. Father, with the help of the boss, I obtained a fortuitous opportunity. It's a long story, I'll tell you later, Ji Ziyue quickly replied. Your boss Chu. Where is my emperor's heart? When the Peacock King, Green Dragon King, and the rest of the demon race saw Chubei's arrival, they shifted their attention away from the purple source stone. To them, the purple source stone was far less important than the great emperor's heart. The purple source stone might be able to create a new almighty expert or even a deity king. However, the purple source stone could create a new demon emperor. Hand over the immortal source. Unlike the other almighties, the Alcade's sacred master pointed the dragon pattern cauldron at Chubei. Chubei glanced at the Peacock King, Alcade's sacred master, and the other almighties and ignored them. His divine consciousness was focused on the terrifying existence in the bronze immortal palace. Vaguely, he could feel that the existence seemed to be hitting something as if it was trying to break free from some kind of restraint. Are you looking down on us? Alcade's sacred master's face darkened when he saw that Chubei did not even look at him. With a cold snort, his sea of reincarnation shook and 9 halos circled above his head. He looked like a deity as he stared at Chubei with a sharp gaze. How dare you? As Chubei continued to ignore Alcade's sacred master, the latter's eyebrows instantly twisted. In the next moment, Alcade's sacred master's spiritual power surged and poured into the dragon pattern cauldron in his hand. With a deafening and majestic dragon roar, a golden dragon claw formed by runes surged out of the dragon pattern cauldron and slammed down in Chubei's direction. It was not only a dragon claw, but also a manifestation of the rules of heaven and earth. One could even vaguely see Dao inscriptions on the dragon claw, forming a web of order and displaying the power of the rules. Especially the terrifying aura of the ancient emperor. Although it was only a small amount, it still suppressed the cultivators below and made them unable to breathe. In the previous battles between the almighties, most of them had been injured by the dragon claw and had been bleeding profusely. However, even in the face of such a terrifying dragon claw, Chubei was still unmoved. He did not look at Alcade's sacred master. Other than the initial solemn expression, there were no other emotions on his face. Rumble, the dragon claw pierced through the void and instantly appeared above Chubei's head. Chubei was still fearless. He did not dodge and continued to look at the green bronze divine hall. However, just as the golden dragon claw was about to slam down with a rumbling sound, Suemo pointed with his finger. Suddenly, a crimson divine radiance shot out from the tip of his finger. With a swoosh, the crimson divine radiance seemed to become the only thing in heaven and earth. It was brilliant and eternal. On the other hand, the dragon claw with the aura of the great emperor collapsed and dissipated into a rain of light. Alcade's sacred master stared in disbelief at the direction where the dragon claw had dissipated. He was horrified. Before Alcade's sacred master could recover from his shock, Chubei shifted his gaze and looked at Alcade's sacred master. His eyes shot out 2 sky-blue jade-green rays of light. Alcade's sacred master let out a miserable cry. The moment the jade-green rays of light struck him, he instinctively raised his right hand and gathered the spiritual influence of heaven and earth to form a barrier to block them. However, the terrifying power contained in the 2 jade-green rays of light was beyond his imagination. The barrier formed by the spiritual influence was instantly pierced through and was right in front of him. Blood splattered. Alcade's sacred master's eyes were pierced through by the 2 jade-green rays of light and came out from the back of his head. blood splattered everywhere as he screamed in pain and flew out. How? How is this possible? He destroyed an extreme Tao Emperor weapon with one blow and pierced Alcade's sacred master's eyes with another. Boss Chu is already so powerful? Even Alcade's sacred master could not withstand his attack. How terrifying! What cultivation level is he at now? Compared to the old lunatic from 6,000 years ago, who is more powerful? Below, the crowd of cultivators revealed astonished expressions as they stared at Chu Bei's back with their mouths agape. Even the Jade Lake Sacred Master, the Peacock King, and the other Almighties could not help but tremble when they saw Alcade's Sacred Master's eyes being pierced through. Their pupils constricted. Obviously, they did not expect Boss Chu, who had appeared out of nowhere, to be so powerful. Boss is indeed powerful. Yifan was shocked and surprised. He did not expect his boss to be able to suppress the overlord of the eastern wilderness with a casual attack. Although Alcade's sacred master's eyes were pierced through and his head came out, he was not dead yet. At his cultivation level, as long as his divine soul was not destroyed, he would not be considered dead. As for his physical body, as long as it was not destroyed, he could regenerate his limbs. It was very difficult to kill him. After trying his best to stabilize his body, Alcade's sacred master returned to the battlefield. Although his pierced eyes had returned to normal, it was not difficult to see that he had consumed a lot of spiritual power. At this moment, his face was pale. Their gazes towards Chu Bei were filled with resentment, but at the same time, there was also some fear. Chu Bei ignored Alcade's sacred master, who had returned to the battlefield, and looked at the bronze immortal palace again. In the palace, there was a low and continuous crashing sound. The crashing sound was extremely difficult to detect. If he had not released his observation hockey to the extreme, even he would not have noticed it. Chu Bei stopped attacking, and the 8 Almighties around him did not dare to act rashly. They all stared at Chu Bei. As for the purple source stone from before, no one knew where it was. In the dead silence, time passed by minute by minute. Boss Chu, the monster clan has no intention to be your enemy. But the heart of the great emperor is related to the future development of the monster clan. If you are willing to return the heart of the great emperor, not only will we not covet the immortal source, but we will also give you a rich treasure as thanks. Finally, the Peacock King and the Green Dragon King, the 2 monster clan almighties, broke the silence. The 2 stood side by side, holding the monster emperor ruler together, and looked at Chu Bei very politely. Chu Bei was silent and did not give an answer, but his face became more and more dignified. Boss Chu, I've been roaming the northern region for several years. Although I've never heard of your name before, judging from your previous techniques, I'm sure you're at least at the peak of the Almighty. You might even be above us. You've successfully cut off your path and become a divine king. Tu Tian held the clay pot with both hands and stood side by side with Jiang Yi, who was holding 3 blood-colored flags. But there is only one immortal source. Even if we give it to you, shouldn't you cut it open in front of us and let us see what is inside? As soon as Tu Tian said this, the eyes of all the cultivators in the field suddenly lit up with curiosity and expectation. However, to everyone's disappointment, Chu Bei seemed to have lost his mind. He slowly rose into the air and stabilized himself when he was less than 100 meters away from the rolling purple cloud sea. His entire body was transparent, and black-purple lightning surged in his body. Occasionally, there would be a strange sound of thunder, which shook everyone's soul. Damn it! Is Boss Chu so arrogant? Tu Tian snorted coldly. Then, he looked at the Alcade's sacred leader, the Jade Lake sacred leader, the Jiang family master, and the others. After exchanging glances with each other, they unexpectedly came to an agreement. In the next moment, apart from the Ji family master, all the other Almighties who had extreme Tao weapons aimed their weapons at Chu Bei, who was above them. A dragon roar came from the dragon pattern cauldron. It was still the golden dragon claw formed by interweaving runes. However, the dragon claw's aura was more powerful this time. In the eternal universe divine cauldron, the blazing flames gathered and burned through the void with a sizzling sound. In the fairy tier tower, the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise, chielin, and other godly beasts appeared. The last godly phoenix spread its wings and flew out. It was huge. In the heaven-swallowing demonic pot, a translucent ball of light condensed with terrifying devouring power was formed. As it tore, the cracks in the void started to spread. In the demonic emperor ruler, the translucent ruler shook. An ancient ferocious beast could be seen roaring and swallowing with its ferocious bloody mouth. The 5 extreme Tao emperor weapons were formed. As the dragon roared and the phoenix roared, 5 terrifying attacks tore through the void and attacked Chu Bei in unison. I have never met such a foolish junior like you in my entire life. You are at a dead end, but you still treat it as an opportunity. What a joke. Chu Bei finally spoke. It was like a divine bell striking a chicken, and it reverberated in the sky and even spread to every corner of the continuous mountain range. As his indifferent voice sounded, Chu Bei raised his hand and struck out a huge lightning palm formed by black-purple lightning. Chapter 284. Amidst the terrifying roar of thunder, the huge lightning palm that covered half the sky as if doomsday had arrived came crashing down. It went straight for the strongest attack of the 5 extreme weapons. There were no flashy explosions, no dazzling explosions, no deafening noises, no. After the blackish-purple lightning palm destroyed the powerful attack of the 5 extreme weapons, it went straight for the Alcade's Sacred Lord, Peacock King, and the other Almighties. Clang, 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 clang. Sensing the terrifying destructive power in the blackish-purple lightning palm at close range, the Almighties did not hesitate at all. They immediately raised their extreme weapons to block it. Amidst the continuous clanging of metal, the 5 extreme weapons left the Almighties at almost the same time and were sent flying. Fortunately, these extreme weapons endured 90% of the power of the huge lightning palm. However, even if the remaining power hit the Almighties, it still caused their blood to boil. They spat out essence blood and their faces turned pale. If you dare to attack again, you'll die. Suddenly, a cold voice came from the distant sky. This time, Chu Bei's voice was filled with cold murderous intent. It was also filled with supreme majesty, completely intimidating the Almighties. 5 indifferent syllables drifted in the sky and reverberated in the minds of everyone present. In the distant sky, the slightly thin young man stood with his hands behind his back. He did not look at the Almighties again. His gaze was fixed on the bronze immortal palace. However, at that moment, even if the Almighties had summoned back their extreme weapons, they could only stand there in a daze. They did not dare to move at all. After the combined attack of the 2 extreme weapons, they could clearly see the difference in strength between them and the figure above. They were not on the same level at all. The Almighties looked at each other and occasionally looked at the figure above. Although their eyes were filled with unwillingness, they did not move at all. At their level, they naturally knew that the other party had held back in his previous attack. If they continued to be stubborn, they might really die. Sea of Reincarnation, Tao Palace, 4 extremes, Dragon Realm, half Almighties, Almighties. In the path of cultivation, what are the levels above the Almighties divided? What realm is this boss Chu at? He actually managed to intimidate these powerful beings who were using extreme weapons with just a wave of his hand. Is he really an old monster who has lived for thousands, or even tens of thousands of years like that lunatic? Maybe he can unlock the secrets of the 7 forbidden zones. Why does he keep staring at the bronze immortal palace? What exactly was inside the immortal palace? Is he also after the opportunity to become an immortal? The group of cultivators below stared blankly at Chu Bei's back in the sky. Their eyes were filled with astonishment and confusion. Just as everyone was discussing Chu Bei, runes suddenly curled up in the sky not far away, and it was extremely gorgeous. A cool breeze blew over, and a tall man walked out of the rune. He had a bronze face, a straight nose, and a square mouth. Other than his empty eyes, this was a very imposing man. He was like an immortal god of war, making people feel reverence. Is this still the old lunatic from 6,000 years ago? All the cultivators, including the Almighties, looked at the imposing man. At first, they were stunned, but when they glanced at his clothes, their eyes widened in shock and disbelief. Judging from his clothes, this imposing man was indeed the old lunatic from before. How did he suddenly become like this? Did he suddenly transform? Everyone's eyes were filled with confusion. A moment ago, his white hair was messy, his body was skinny, his eyes were cloudy, and he looked crazy. But now, he was very different. His body was strong, and his hair was thick and black. He was like a different person, as if he had obtained eternal youth. Under everyone's shocked gaze, the imposing man walked towards Chu Bei in the sky. With every step he took, the void would resonate with him. The strange runes under his feet seemed to contain the Tao of heaven and earth. Endless bones, mountains of corpses, seas of blood, it's coming. You are very strong, but even you can't stop it. The old lunatic was sometimes clear-headed and sometimes crazy. He walked back and forth around Chu Bei and kept muttering. Poor man. Chu Bei glanced at the old lunatic and sighed. His gaze returned to the bronze immortal palace. Two beams of divine light shot out from his eyes. They were as bright as two golden lamps. They pierced through the purple clouds and shone on the bronze immortal palace. What's through it that the old lunatic keeps muttering about? Could it be the desolate slave from the forbidden land of ancient desolation, the existence that once destroyed the entire heavenly jade sacred ground? Have you forgotten that the day the heavenly jade sacred ground was bathed in blood was the day the bronze immortal palace appeared? You mean the it that the old lunatic is talking about is the bronze immortal palace? Or the existence inside? Stop guessing. We don't even know what's inside the bronze immortal palace. The gazes of the cultivators in the field kept switching between Chu Bei and Crazy Ol. Thump, 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 thump. While the crowd was still immersed in the heated discussion, the endless purple clouds in the distant sky churned like a raging sea. Layers of waves rolled over each other. At the same time, the incomparably huge bronze immortal palace in the clouds began to sway slightly. Rhythmic hammering sounds came from within. The low and strange hammering sounds were like demonic sounds from hell. With each hammering sound, the souls of all the cultivators present trembled violently. A bone-piercing chill inexplicably surged into their hearts. What's that sound? Is the immortal opportunity in the bronze immortal palace going to appear again? The cultivators raised their eyes and stared at the trembling bronze immortal palace. Suddenly, Chu Bei lowered his head and glanced at the crowd below. His indifferent voice came from his mouth. If you don't want to die, leave immediately. However, even though Chu Bei's voice echoed between heaven and earth, only a few people below hesitated and flew away. As for the others, they looked at each other and remained unmoved. Looking at the indifferent crowd of cultivators below, Chu Bei shook his head and didn't say anything else. Clang! After a long while, the huge bronze immortal palace suddenly let out an ear-piercing roar. Roar! Suddenly, a terrifying roar came from the sky, accompanied by strange sounds of collision and friction. What's going on? This roar. Is there a living creature in the bronze immortal palace? Look, the door of the immortal palace is open. Hearing the roar from above, all the cultivators' expressions changed drastically. Amitabha, this Taoist master has divined that danger is coming. The fat Taoist master, Duanda, played with the Buddha in his hand and muttered a few words. After that, he looked at Ji Ziyue and Yi Fan beside him. Little guys, do you want to leave with this Taoist master? Even if the boss can't protect the others, he can protect us. Yi Fan had no intention of leaving at all. Moreover, he had eaten the thunder elixir, so his body could turn into lightning at the critical moment. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The bronze immortal palace trembled, and the purple clouds rolled. The roar shook the entire continuous mountain range. Even the forbidden area of the remote antiquity not far away was affected. From the open door of the immortal palace, black shadows rushed out and disappeared into the purple clouds. Living creatures, there really are living creatures. In the clouds, an unknown living creature roared. and its roar shook the heavens and the earth. Are they all ancient living creatures? The cultivators below the dragon realm felt their souls tremble. In the sea of clouds, there were more than 10 unknown living creatures. Even though they were far away, they could still feel the terrifying aura. Isn't there an opportunity to become an immortal in the Bronze Immortal Palace? Why are there so many ancient living creatures? Everyone looked at the rolling sea of purple clouds and felt uneasy. Buzz. The Bronze Immortal Palace trembled, and the vast sea of purple clouds below it turned black in an instant. It pressed down, and the terrifying aura sent chills down everyone's spines. Boom! Before the group of cultivators could recover from their shock, a gigantic claw covered in green scales reached out from the black clouds. It was as big as a small mountain, and it clawed down. Almost instantly, a few people in the area where the giant claw was about to land were crushed into a bloody mist, and their bodies and souls were destroyed. What kind of living creature is that? How big is it? It can kill a few experts of the 4 extremities with one claw. Such a powerful living creature. I'm afraid that even the powerful experts would have to put in some effort to deal with it. Witnessing the deaths of more than 10 experts in that direction, the group of experts was dumbfounded. Their bodies were drenched in cold sweat. Boom! In the clamor, the giant claw reached out again, sweeping across the void. No one could stop it, and dozens of experts were crushed in the air, turning into a bloody mess. Clang, clang, clang. Another sea of clouds surged, and ancient music was heard. The murderous aura was like raging waves, and the music was like the sound of swords, clanging loudly. The sea of purple clouds turned white, and a delicate lady could be vaguely seen sitting high in the clouds, playing an ancient instrument that looked like a zither. As the music rang out, rays of bright light shot down. The zither music was like a stormy sea, destroying everything and covering the heavens and earth. This was a sharp, murderous sound, and it was like a powerful army was galloping. Endless murderous aura swept down, and dozens of cultivators were pierced through. Corpses fell from the sky, and they were torn apart by the endless murderous aura. Is this an ancient humanoid creature? Gzue looked at the delicate lady in the clouds in astonishment. The zither music in her hand was like a stormy sea, and wherever it passed, corpses were strewn everywhere. Rumble. The third sea of clouds quickly changed and turned dark gray. A bloody claw slammed down, blotting out the sky and covering the sun. It was like a mountain had smashed down, and the cultivators below were crushed into powder on the spot. Run. These ancient creatures are not something we can fight. We will die if we stay here any longer. This Bronze Immortal Palace is not an opportunity at all. It's a dead end. No wonder those experts from 3,000 years ago were all turned into wax corpses. These ancient creatures have the strength of a half-step almighty at least. Perhaps only those almighty experts can fight them. As for us, we are simply cannon fodder. As more and more cultivators died, screams rose one after another. Many cultivators had already rushed into the sky, trying to fly into the distance. However, before the thousands of rainbows could go far, one after another, ferocious ancient creatures charged out of the endless sea of purple clouds in the sky. There were many of these ancient creatures, and there were many kinds of them. Some were strong, and some were weak. Amidst the rustling sounds, thousands of primordial life forms roared savagely as they charged at their targets. Ah! A series of miserable wails resounded between heaven and earth. Damn it! Seeing their own people being eaten by the ancient creatures, the Alcade Sacred Master, the Jade Lake Sacred Master, the Jiang family head, and the other almighties looked terrible. Chapter 285. Those almighties have made their move. On the battlefield, the cultivators who were fighting fiercely with the primordial creatures saw the 8 almighties charging into the purple cloud sea. Their auras surged. A beam of light flashed past. The Alcade's sacred leader held the dragon pattern cauldron and roared. Runes intertwined to form a golden dragon claw that fought with the delicate woman who was playing the zither. The Jiang family patriarch held the eternal universe divine cauldron, and the blazing flames condensed into a beam. The high temperature burned through the void and hit the bloody claw. The Jade Lake sacred leader held the immortal tear tower, and a godly phoenix flew out and attacked the enormous palm that reached out from the cloud sea. In the blink of an eye, the group of Almighties entered the cloud sea. With the power of their extreme Tao weapons, they each chose a powerful primordial creature to fight. Even the demon race's Peacock King and Green Dragon King stood on the same side as the humans at this moment. Their roars shook the sky. Rumble. The purple cloud sea was boiling. The sky was like a painting. It rustled and shook violently as if it would be torn and shattered at any moment. Damn it! Don't these primordial creatures have consciousness? Must they kill each other to the death? On the fierce battlefield, the cultivators were furious. Even if someone tried to escape from the battlefield, they would immediately be targeted by another primordial creature. Gradually, the battle between the humans, demons, and primordial creatures became a battle to the death. The battle became more and more intense. In the end, no cultivator could stand by and watch. Even Duanda and Yifan were forced to join the battle with the primordial creatures. Heaven and earth trembled. This was a bloody battle. Humans, demons, and primordial creatures were covered in blood and corpses. Even the Alcade's sacred leader, the Jiang family patriarch, Tu Tian, and the other Almighties with extreme Tao weapons kept bleeding when facing the primordial creatures in the cloud sea. I hate it. If we had listened to Boss and left this place, we wouldn't have to fight with these unknown creatures now. It's all because of greed. We shouldn't have thought that we could get the opportunity to become an immortal. This is a hopeless situation. Could it be that Boss Chu entered the Bronze Immortal Palace? Otherwise, why would he let us go? The sound of fierce fighting was mixed with the sound of regret. Endless bones, mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Crazy Ol's figure wandered around the battlefield, returning to his crazy state. As for Chu Bei, who was high up in the sky, he looked at the increasing number of corpses below him and listened to the cries for help. He just shook his head and ignored them. Previously, he had already warned these fellows. Moreover, all his thoughts were on the existence in the Bronze Immortal Palace. To be more precise, he was restraining the other party with all of his strength, carrying out a contest against that existence in the Bronze Immortal Palace. Dong dong dong. As the battle continued, the frequency of the low collisions in the Bronze Immortal Palace grew faster and faster. From time to time, they would even send messages to Chu Bei with their consciousness, roaring with resentment and anger. Are they coming out? Suddenly, the Bronze Immortal Palace fell silent. Following that, Chu Bei's expression became even more serious. Roar. Suddenly, a loud roar that seemed to come from ancient times came from the huge Bronze Immortal Palace above the sea of clouds. The roar resounded between heaven and earth. The terrifying sound wave passed through the main hall, pierced through the sea of clouds, and reverberated in the sky above the continuous mountain range. The forest below collapsed with a loud rumble, and the ground cracked open with a bottomless crack. The mountain rocks in the forest trembled and shattered. The sudden loud roar reverberated in the sky, and a strange friction sound came from the Bronze Immortal Palace. Following that, a violent and terrifying aura spread out from the huge Immortal Palace. Sensing this terrifying aura, even the expressions of the Almighties in the sea of clouds who were holding extreme weapons changed abruptly. Needless to say, the cultivators whose cultivation levels were below the dragon realm immediately fell from the sky under this pressure, paralyzed on the ground, unable to move at all. At this moment, the ferocious-looking ancient creatures stopped fighting at the same time and knelt down in the direction of the Bronze Immortal Palace. They let out strange, low, and pious cries. Roar. There was another loud roar, and a terrifying spiritual energy fluctuation that could destroy heaven and earth surged out from the door of the Immortal Palace. The roar was filled with heart-palpitating cruelty and brutality, and it was filled with endless destruction and killing. The source of the roar seemed to represent the most terrifying disaster in the world. It seemed to have come from a prehistoric beast that had awakened from a deep slumber. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, a skeletal hand without any flesh and blood stretched out from the bronze immortal palace. The skeletal hand waved gently, and a white light expanded rapidly. Then, it pressed down on the sea of clouds. Looking at the white light that was tens of thousands of feet long, the pupils of Alcade's Saint Master, Master Jiang, Tu Tian, and the other powerful experts shrank. The speed of the white light was not fast, and it was moving at a speed that could be seen with the naked eye. However, what terrified the powerful experts was that the moment the white light hit the skeletal hand, their bodies were inexplicably restrained by an invisible force. At this moment, the invisible force that was several times stronger than their bodies had forcibly severed their connection with their weapons. They could only watch as the white light slowly descended. Unknowingly, the foreheads of the 8 powerful experts began to drip with cold sweat, and their eyes were filled with fear. At their level, what they feared the most was death. Faintly, even though they were strong, they began to regret coming here. They regretted that they had mistakenly entered this deadly situation in search of immortality. Dead. We're all going to die. The old lunatic looked at the skeletal hand in front of the immortal palace's door and muttered, "What exactly is that skeletal hand? Could it be that it's still alive? What is its origin? What is the relationship between the bronze immortal palace and it? Even these savage ancient creatures are bowing to it. Those powerful experts don't even have the strength to resist? Could it be that we're really going to die here today and become wax corpses like those experts who entered the immortal palace 3,000 years ago?" The cultivators who had collapsed in the mountain range stared at the small half of the skeletal hand outside the immortal palace's door in fear. Their faces were pale with fright. Above the purple sea of clouds, as the white light approached, several powerful ancient creatures quickly left the sea of clouds, leaving behind the Alcade's sacred master, the Jiang family's master, and the others. In the end, it feels like we've brought our weapons from the north region to our deaths. Tu Tian and Jiang Yi looked at each other and smiled. Their words carried a hint of self-mockery. Not only them, but the Alcade's sacred master, the Jiang family's master, the Peacock King, and the other powerful experts also shook their heads helplessly. Clearly, they didn't expect this to be the result. However, just as the experts felt chills run down their backs as they watched the white light descend, waiting for death to descend with great reluctance, an ear-piercing thrum of a sword rang out. Just as the white light was about to hit them, a huge and dazzling sword light appeared in the void and met the white light head-on. Rumble. Following a deafening explosion, the collision created a huge gap in the void. Countless space fragments rained down until they dissipated into nothingness. After the deafening explosion, there was dead silence in the world. Everything was silent. Almost instantly, the Alcade's sacred master, the Jiang family's master, Tu Tian, and the others in the Sea of Clouds regained control of their bodies. After they regained their senses, they didn't hesitate at all. They held their weapons and quickly left the surging Sea of Clouds. After the 8 of them stabilized themselves in the void, they looked at Chu Bei with an indifferent expression and his hands behind his back. They didn't know when, but a long sword that was emitting a demonic light appeared in Chu Bei's hand. They were very sure that the sword ray had come from Boss Chu. It was Boss Chu who had pulled them back from the brink of death. Even the Alcade's sacred master couldn't help but cup his fists at Chu Bei to express his gratitude. Ever since the ancient creature appeared in the bronze immortal palace, the forces that were originally at odds with each other had united as if they were tied to the same boat. "Your opponent is me." Suddenly, an extremely calm voice was spat out from Chu Bei's mouth. His voice was not loud, but it resounded in the minds of everyone present. Chu Bei pointed his sword at the immortal palace. His robe fluttered without wind, and a supreme aura that didn't contain any spiritual power but made people feel suffocated suddenly erupted with him as the center. Xinyuan sword, a level 14 commodity. Perhaps it was because of Chu Bei's deliberate actions, but under this sword aura, the human race and the demon race's performance was still fine. However, the ancient creatures were all trembling. From time to time, they would let out beastly roars, as if they were crying for help from the existence in the bronze immortal palace. Whoosh! The existence in the bronze immortal palace responded. The skeletal hand that was exposed outside the immortal palace trembled slightly. Layers of white light spread and selectively wrapped around the ancient creatures. Roar, roar, roar. In an instant, the ancient creatures that were previously suppressed by Chu Bei's aura seemed to have been reborn. They roared and charged at the cultivators again. Kill. Perhaps it was because of Chu Bei's protection, the pressure from the bronze immortal palace that the cultivators of the human race and the demon race had been enduring suddenly disappeared. Under the leadership of the 8 powerful experts, they faced the ancient creatures with great momentum. In a short while, the battlefield that had stopped fighting was once again filled with all kinds of brilliant lights and flesh and blood. Chu Bei glanced at the battlefield below. His expression didn't change in the slightest as he controlled his body to fly slowly toward the purple cloud sea. To be precise, he was flying toward the bronze immortal palace above the cloud sea. Crack! The cloud sea surged and a thick barrier formed. However, it only lasted for half a second before it was turned into a rain of light fragments by the sword light of Chu Bei's Xianyuan sword. Looking at Chu Bei, who had already appeared above the cloud sea, Crazy Ol steadied his swaying body. 2 beams of light shot out from his originally empty eyes and focused on the bronze immortal palace. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.